Melbourne town where the suits all grind, there's a lawyer with a vision, one of a kind. He's the Aussie Overlaw'd, he'll fight for your rights, and he's got his own channel shining bright. From the courtroom to the web, he's got it all, sharing legal knowledge, answering the call. He breaks it down in a language we all understand. The Aussie Overlaw'd taking a stand. With his Aussie charm and his legal know-how, he's the hero we need, showing us how. He fights for justice, no case too tough. The Aussie Overlaw'd, he's more than enough. He's more than enough. In Melbourne town where the suits all grind, there's a lawyer with a vision, one of a kind. He's the Aussie Overlaw'd, he'll fight for your rights, and he's got his own channel shining bright. From the courtroom to the web, he's got it all, sharing legal knowledge, answering the call. He breaks it down in a language we all understand. The Aussie Overlaw'd taking a stand. With his Aussie charm and his legal know-how, he's the hero we need, showing us how. He fights for justice, no case too tough. The Aussie Overlaw'd, he's more than enough. He's more than enough. In Melbourne town where the suits all grind, there's a lawyer with a vision, one of a kind. He's the Aussie Overlaw'd, he'll fight for your rights.
A meme-ready moment primed to go viral before the net was even invented.
I'm under what? Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest. What is the charge? Eating a meal? A succulent Chinese meal?
Dramatic, theatrical, hysterical.
See that chap over there? Get your hand off my penis!
His name was Jack Karlson, artist and con artist. Unknown before that day in 1991, famous worldwide now.
Ah, yes. I see that you know your judo well.
The video of his restaurant arrest for credit card fraud has been viewed millions and millions of times.
We're supposed to be living in a democracy, and here they're dragging me out of a restaurant after enjoying halfway through a succulent Chinese meal.
A lovable rogue, we found him 30 years later, still loving Chinese, still making a buck from his internet fame.
One bloke offered me $3,000 for that if I finish it.
And still protesting his innocence.
I'm just a poor, struggling artist.
Not quite. Jack had a long petty crime record, served time, escaped prison, was once shot, but the arrest, unforgettable for him and the reporter who covered the story.
Edwards is also wanted for questioning in New South Wales.
In the 33 years since we shot that remarkable arrest, Jack Karlson has become an immortal of Australian folklore. There is merch, everything from T-shirts to tea towels. There's a racehorse named after him, an opera about him, and soon a movie. He will be missed and never forgotten. This year...
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome to today's episode of To Be Advised. And yes, Gem, unfortunately, Jack did pass away yesterday. May he rest in peace, having given everybody a significant number of years of laughter and a love of a succulent Chinese meal. How are we doing, everybody? Hope everyone's well. I do sincerely apologize for missing last night. I'll be perfectly honest, I had some news. I can't really talk about it as of yet, but I will do, provided something eventuates out of it. It does potentially mean that there may be less streaming in the future, but it's a good thing. Oh god, now I sound like Martha Stewart. It's a good thing. Yes, I'm trusting fast, Stingy. It is all good. Okay, there is no issues there, no problems whatsoever, thank God. Whatever the sickness was, well and truly passed. No, this was work-related, and like I said, not saying too much, but it's a good thing. So, but I'm here where I hate that my mind always jumps to the chant. We're here where no, the reason that I'm here tonight is because A, didn't want to leave you guys hanging 2 nights in a row, but B, I managed to find something. I managed to scramble, having gotten the little one to bed. Thank you for reminding me, Shed Occupant. See, wouldn't be a day ending in Y if I didn't forget about the damn audio mix. Crank that up to 90. There we go. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about tonight? Well, the whole Rumble and X suing GARM situation has provided an interesting outcome. So for those of you that don't know, GARM is a conglomerate, or was a conglomerate, of advertising executives that was run by the, what was it, the World, hang on, let me get this right. The Global Alliance for Responsible Media was allegedly a non-for-profit coalition of major advertisers led by the World Federation of Advertisers. Think of it as the WEF for advertising agencies. So, Sumo Lego. Oh, that's exactly what's happened, and that's why nothing is really going to come of it. But we're going to talk about that. But basically, both Rumble and X, as what are now being seen as right-wing media sources, sued GARM for alleged harm based on censorship of right-wing opinions and rhetoric, or whatever, however the hell you want to put it. GARM equals the global naughty list. Pretty much. And so what has the World... was it the World Federation of Advertisers done? Well, ever since the whole monopoly power thing with Google and all that sort of stuff, they decided to be a good idea that now that they're being sued by Elon and Rumble, to shut GARM down. So yeah, Elon has effectively sued them into Oblivion, hence the new title of the show, which I have updated. So, let's get stuck into it, but first what I want to talk about is a feud. A feud that for some reason decided that it needed to garner national attention. It's a feud that has a lot of people walking around like a cat on a hot tin roof. Has people edgy, has people... All the words in the dictionary. My brain is still not working properly. I'm still, like I said, I'm still a little bit out of it after trying to work out what the hell I'm doing with something. So, it's a feud between a young boy and the school cafeteria. Been going on for a year, and today it became of such national importance that the Prime Minister had to comment on it during a press conference. Let's have a look at that one, shall we?
Everything that guy just says, bullshit.
Oh, God. Well, who had
Thank you.
boomerang within the first
Everything that guy just
35
says,
seconds on?
bullshit. Thank you.
Was always going to happen. Anthony Albanese tells Hocking Primary School canteen to serve a student whose mum is locked in a bitter feud with staff. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has given his words of advice in hopes of settling a long-standing and strange feud between the workers of a high school canteen and a student who is being refused service. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has attempted to solve a year-long strange feud between
popular
the canteen
lunchbox
staff.
items.
I'll wreck off. At a West Australian school and the mother of a student. Natalie Dura has been trying to settle an ongoing dispute with the canteen workers at Hocking Primary School in Perth's North after she accused of them of forgetting her 11-year-old son's lunch order and had left him hungry more than a year ago. The mother sent an angry email to the school and reportedly accused them of having no ability to do this job and that they should get themselves a new career, as you are way too stupid and lacking in social skills to continue to do this one. Now, don't get me wrong, this is, I don't know, angry mama bear to the nth degree. Probably should have taken her words a little bit more carefully. But here's the thing. Pretty sure Hocking Primary School is a public school, which means it's a government school, which means that it's a service provided. The workers responded last August by refusing the service of her son Jackson. Oh, okay, hang on. She spelled Jackson with an X. The school's principal stepped in and slammed Mrs. Dura's reaction, which he believes suggested staff were incompetent and stupid, the West Australian newspaper reported. The mother has conceded she should not have sent the email and claims to have made repeated attempts at reaching out to resolve the issue. She sent a Karen email. She was contrite about it. It's your guys' turn to just, I don't know, back away from the ledge and stop being dicks. His name will be Jet Widdowson to me. She even reached out to the Parents and Citizens group which runs the canteen. Mr. Albanese was in Perth on Friday morning speaking about childcare following this week's announcement about a 15% boost to pay for workers in the sector, when the last question from a journalist was about the canteen feud. And how do you think that should be resolved? The reporter asked. I'm sorry, look at that photo. You asked this man how anything should be resolved, and I feel like his answer should be over fine wine and cheese. The PM initially replied with 5 words. Give the kids some lunch, she said, drawing laughter. Seriously, I did have a read of that. The kid shouldn't be caught up in this argument. He's 11 years old. A bit of common sense should apply here. Yes, there is in no way in hell that this should wind up being in any sort of, I don't know, legal dispute. Bogan or hippies? Neither, I think. I think this might be a hoity-toity up-herself person, but that's my own reading of the situation. And I'm sure that he will, he said. The ongoing debacle could not be resolved with the help of the Education Department. Seriously. They didn't make his lunch, she sent an email, and a year later a government department has to get involved. This is how petty and pathetic they're being. He tried to intervene on behalf of Miss Dura, but the parents, the PNC, the Parents and, Citizens Group, would not budge, suggesting it may change its mind if the mother wrote an apology to the staff. She penned a letter in May, speaking about the concerns for her son, who she said was being unfairly treated due to the war of the words, before she apologised unreservedly. However, PNC refused to back down following the letter. So they say, hey, we'll feed the kid if she apologises. Sure, she gives a backhanded apology, but she unreservedly apologises, and they still refuse to give the kid food. It sent a letter to Mrs. Dura on Wednesday to inform her that the ban would remain in place. As an employer, we have an obligation to our canteen staff to abide by the workplace health and safety regulations in providing a safe physical and online working environment. Oh my god.
You're an idiot!
More info I stumble across, the more it just concerns Ashkenazi occupation. Okay. Down under is the sauce in the pizza considered a vegetable, like when I was in the school in the 70s in the USA? I don't believe so. Couldn't the mother just call whatever version of CPS is? She did, that's the point. The Department of Education. Like, it's not parenting services because it's not a parental matter. She actually got the Department of Education involved, and the group still turned around and said, no, we're not doing it. We're not. We're also following the Hocking Primary School Behaviour Management Plan and Code of Conduct whilst on school grounds. What a absolute ridiculous thing, honestly.
Are banned at school canteens across Western Australia and South Australia. Our reporter, Crystal Wu...
What was that? Parents react to new... Oh, no! There's new restrictions.
Popular lunchbox.
Alright, I'm pausing it there so I can restart it, but... there are enough issues with parents giving their kids lunches, particularly in the current climate, because certain things can be expensive. I mean, yes, fruit and veg and whatever else is... can be cheap, but, you know, trying to get a 5-year-old to eat something like that can be a little bit tricky. Now, since sending Scarlett to school this year, what I've learned is that kids that are in prep, foundation, kindergarten, whatever you want to call it, they have 3 breaks now instead of just recess and lunch. They have fruit break, they have recess, and they have lunch, which means that we have to pack a certain amount of fruit every day in her school bag. I missed a day when we first started up, and apparently the PE teacher had words with Scarlett because I didn't put fruit in her lunchbox at the time. I was not impressed. But, you know what? I don't. It's like the whole thank Michelle Obama hashtag all over again. I have no idea. I didn't look into that. So, alright. What are these new restrictions? What the hell is fruit break? It's like a 5-minute break early in the morning for them to have a fruit snack. I generally cut up some apple and put it in a bag for her.
Items are banned at school canteens across Western Australia and
it's
South
the ham
Australia.
thing. I forgot about this.
Our reporter, Crystal Wu,
They're banning ham in schools.
asked parents on the streets of Perth, have we taken the lunchbox rules too far?
It's an Aussie staple, the humble ham and cheese, sandwiched between thick white bread and salted butter. Under new healthy eating recommendations, ham is now classified as red in the WA School Canteen Association's traffic light system, meaning it's been taken off the menu.
Yeah, so the schools have a traffic light system which, you know, for obvious reasons, you'd understand. You got blue, you got green, yellow, and red as to things that are good, things that are okay on occasion, and red that are just things that should never be in the school lunchbox. Ham is basically the best protein, easy to digest and use by our bodies. Yeah. I don't believe that this has anything to do with the nutritional value of it.
Along with treats like lollies, chocolates and chips.
It's healthy, ham and cheese.
They're literally putting ham in the same category as a chocolate bar.
What's wrong with ham and cheese? Get on with it.
I think ham and cheese is fine. I think everything is good in moderation.
Perhaps it's not something we should send kids every day, but I certainly think that it should be an option because people's children might be quite particular about food, and rather than eat nothing, eating a ham and cheese sandwich I think is acceptable.
Parents on social media have blown up over the announcement.
Well,
we really need to go back to basics and leave political correctness and lunchboxes out of it. One person commented, "Oh dear, for my 3 boys this was a staple lunch." Some agree it is hard to find a...
More to the point, ever since I went to American Foods and I bought that big-ass block of American cheese, 2 or 3 ham and cheese sandwiches has been a staple, like, for dinner at least once a week. Like, take my pork out of my hands from my cold, dead hands. Like...
the balance between healthy eating and getting their child to eat.
I do think it has gone a bit too far. Ham, yes, it is a processed food. It is high in sodium, but it's not been given on its own. It's been given with cheese, which we know contains calcium and protein, and bread, which has fibre.
Cost of living concerns are also another factor.
Ideally, you do want to mix, so if you can have some vegetables in there, some fruit, some whole grains, some protein, whether that's meat or legumes or some cheese, you really want to aim for a good balance.
So, what type of lunchbox parent are you? Are you packing homemade, sugar-free sweet potato brownies or spending hours cutting cucumbers?
Who the fuck has time for that? Damn it, I was trying so hard not to swear tonight too. Who has time for that?
Into stars and putting them in a bento box with a toothpick and an affirmation note. Or just a good old-fashioned Vegemite sandwich on white bread. Either way, ham's off the cards.
Well, ham comes from pigs and cheese comes from cows, so I can't see anything wrong with that.
Crystal Wu.
Okay, that might be the quote of the day. Toothpick, no way that's a weapon. Do your overlords listen to feedback like this, or will they double down because of the hubris of the parents that speak up? Whilst the left-wing governments remain in power, they're going to continue to just ignore people, pretty much. He's a very simple bloke, yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that in the slightest. Hey, no, how you doing? But no, honestly, it's getting out of hand. It really is. It's getting out of hand with this kind of shit. GNO stuff is processed, but regular old ham is not. Yeah. But anyway, all right, let's move on to the topic of the night, because let's face it, I need to be able to put that into the intro. Affirmation note: eat all your damn lunch like I eat. Stingy! You almost had me. Okay. Elon Musk sues advertisers over alleged boycott. The platform's antitrust suit claims an alleged conspiracy to withhold advertising dollars. Right-wing video site Rumble filed a similar suit today. This was a couple of days ago. X today filed a lawsuit against a group of major advertisers for allegedly conspiring to withhold advertising dollars from the social media platform, which, since Musk's takeover, has been seen as more amenable to hosting controversial content. The suit filed in the federal court in Texas says dozens of advertisers followed the recommendation of a key advertising coalition, the Global Alliance of Responsible Media. GARM! GARM! To boycott buying ads on X since Musk bought the company. The suit says that this turn of events cost the company billions of dollars in revenue. The lawsuit seeks unspecified damages for violation of US antitrust law. Right-wing video site Rumble, founded more than 10 years ago as an alternative to YouTube and positioned as a platform immune to cancel culture, announced on Tuesday that it had filed a similar lawsuit. GARM! Was a conspiracy to perpetrate an advertiser boycott of Rumble and others, and that is illegal, the company posted on its X account. Not really supposed to be conspiring to take out companies? Nope. The US House Judiciary Committee, which is controlled by Republicans and has expressed concern about the censorship of far-right-wing... I am so goddamn used to reading the words far-right-wing that I just read that as automatically as far-right-wing. About censorship of right-wing views on social media has been investigating GARM! In a preliminary report in July, the committee found that the extent to which GARM has organised its trade association and coordinated actions that rob consumers of choice is likely illegal under the antitrust laws and threatens fundamental American freedoms. X's lawsuit draws heavily from internal GARM emails reviewed by the congressional panel. I'm going to slowly work back to GARM because at some point the wife's going to start yelling at me. Okay, right. In a video shared to X, CEO Linda Yaccarino said she was shocked by the evidence uncovered by the House Judiciary Committee that there had been a systematic illegal boycott of X. Yaccarino attempted to rally X users with references to free speech in her statement. While pointing directly at the camera, she alleged that the advertisers were targeting our company and you, our users, and threatening your global town square. People are hurt when the marketplace of ideas is constricted, she said. The Brussels-based World Federation of Advertisers, which oversees GARM, did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the lawsuits. As X's lawsuit also names Unilever, Mars, CVS, and Danish energy company as defendants, While Rumble's suit additionally targets the ad agency WPP, none of the companies immediately responded to requests for comment. X's lawsuit contends that the advertisers in the past had to individually strike deals with social media companies to set boundaries around what types of content they would sponsor. Through GARM, advertisers have been able to aggregate that power, establishing industry standards for content moderation. Notice how they're twisting it? It's not that they were strong arming it. Why are you yelling? Because it's funny. Musk said to the advertiser convention to go fuck yourselves. What a hypocrite. Damn it. Yelling at us like Chad McCabe imitating Karen, screaming, Chad! In X's view, GARM now has too much say over the content social media platforms may allow. In a competitive market, each social media platform would set the brand safety standards that are optimal for the platform and for its users, and the advertisers would unilaterally select the platforms which they advertise, the complaint states. But collective action... Oh, hang on. Is that full complaint? Open that menu. Collective action amongst the competing advertisers to dictate brand safety standards to be applied by social media platforms shortcuts the competitive process and allows the collective views of a group of advertisers with market power to override the interests of consumers. X's fraught relationship with advertisers dates as far back as Musk's buyout of the company formerly known as Twitter. The new lawsuit alleges that GARM via a public letter to Musk trigger a boycott of Twitter ads immediately following his purchase of the company in October 22. Over the next 2 months, at least 18 GARM member advertisers, including Mars and Unilever, stopped buying Twitter ads, according to the lawsuit. Dozens more members cut back on their spending. In November 23, how far have we got left on this? Where am I saying? In November 23, the non-profit media watchdog Media Matters. Oh, they're bringing Media Matters into this. What's that? It's weird the list exists. People use the list, but those lists are very often very illegal. Oh, local police cost the county a lot of money over these types of lists. This shouldn't have been able to happen to begin with. I agree with you on that. Media Matters, who allegedly manipulated their own interactions to make sure that they could smear some stuff against the wall when it came to X, published a report that showed how pro-Yahtzee content on X had been appearing alongside advertising from reputable brands. Again, I underline the fact that allegedly they managed to manipulate a brand new Twitter account or however it was set up. I remember covering this, and that Elon sued them for that. As a result, entities like IBM, Disney, Lionsgate, the European Union, and reportedly Apple pulled their ads from X. Later that month, speaking at the New York Times DealBook Summit, Musk told the brands to go fuck themselves, and aimed some of his remarks specifically at Bob, being Disney's chief executive Bob Iger. X alleges that GARM has yet to rescind its boycott. By refraining from purchasing advertising from X, boycotting advertisers are foregoing a valuable opportunity to purchase low-priced advertising inventory on a platform with brand safety that meets or exceeds industry standards, the complaint states. In a preview of advertisers' potential defense to the new lawsuit, Sarah K. Wiley, Director of Policy at the advertising watchdog group Check My Ads, says in an emailed statement that the advertisers have a right...
has donated $2.00 and says GARM.
GARM! Thank you for the super chat. Also, hang on, Aussie Tank, I did see that you dropped a few memberships as well. For some reason, Social Stream has pissed them off. I'm not 100% sure why. But thank you very much for the 5 memberships, and I am keeping track of that. So we are... Oh, hang on, that'll put us 5... There we go. We are $25 away from Doggo Cam because we don't count anything less than $5. Yes, I'm pulling that Bronca thing just because it's easier because I can't set it up to do $2 and $1 on the soundboard. They 100% manipulated and falsely reported that represented those search results. Yes, they very much did, in my opinion, as well. You mean like people systematically attacking anyone who doesn't support Democrats and total government control of those Yahtzees? Maybe. Ever figure out what happened with my 4 gifted last week? No, actually. That bark scared the crap out of your dog. Sorry, the bark scared the crap out of your cat. Sorry about that. Sounds like I'm angry about gum. Gum! So basically, Check My Ads is turning around saying, well, they have a First Amendment right to choose with whom and who they want to associate with. Yes, but that is not what the argument is here. The argument is that a conglomerate or a overarching brand issued a decree effectively stifling individual advertisers from whether or not they will actually advertise on a particular platform or whatever else. In my personal opinion, you can't hide behind the First Amendment for free speech by saying, oh, yeah, it's a conspiring this issue. Exactly. Advertisers shouldn't have to subsidize viewpoints they don't agree with. In fact, requiring so would be un-American and unconstitutional, Wiley writes. Yeah, look, that's fair. Engaging in a conspiracy to make sure that it doesn't happen, that's a little bit more of an antitrust issue. Elon Musk and the ex-executives have the right, protected by the First Amendment, to say what they want online, even when it's inaccurate, and advertisers have the right to keep their ads away from it. As simple as that. Alleging unfair competition isn't a new tactic for smaller social media companies. In May, Rumble sued Google's advertising business, also alleging antitrust violations. I hadn't looked at the motion from last week. Listen to how up themselves Google sound about this. Google last week filed a motion to dismiss Rumble's complaint on the basis that Rumble lacked standing to sue because it wasn't using or competing with Google's offerings. Oh yeah, we don't care about Rumble. It's not worthy of being classed as a competitor to YouTube. Like, holy shit. Rumble does not belong in the current melee over Google's advertising technology. Google's attorneys wrote a hearing has been scheduled for January. Now, obviously that's wide, so it was a little bit leaning towards the left against it. But what I thought was interesting was that, let's have a look at how the CNN put it, because this one made me want to hurl a little bit. Always alarmed when evil people use legal and economic system effectively. Like, you're batshit crazy, but the system is working for you. Musk just sued a non-profit advertising group out of existence. Notice how they phrased that? Because, yeah, fine, it's a non-for-profit, but technically so is the WEF. I think. Don't quote me. A major ad industry group is shutting down days after Elon Musk filed a lawsuit that claimed the group illegally conspired to boycott the advertising on his platform. Doesn't seem convenient at all. He goes to sue them and they immediately go, yeah, no, we're closing down. GARM is a small non-for-profit initiative, and recent allegations that unfortunately misconstrue its purpose, bullshit, and activities have caused a distraction and significant drain on its resources and finances, the group said in a statement on Friday. What a crock of shit. He filed the suit 3 days ago. What significant drain on the resources and finances could have happened in 3 days? If you're talking about the Rumble case, that's separate. Alright, the GARM is therefore taking the difficult decision to discontinue its activities. The group, Global Alliance for Responsible Media, also known as GARM, is a voluntary ad industry initiative run by the World Federation of Advertisers that aims to help brands avoid having their advertisements appear alongside illegal or harmful content. Basically, it was a nanny-gate system that they all signed up to say, yeah, we're just not going to be involved in this because we want to make sure that we're promoting the right things for our brand. Of politics, or personal beliefs, or religion, or any number of other things. Wondering about the conflict of interest with the news outlets that are dependent upon advertisers? That's a good point, Rich. Surely the whole issue here is the American Constitution is just that, America, not the whole world, even though I agree 100%. Just seems in the future there will be world laws. Well, that's the main thing, Coke Fairy. Either that's really going to be the main push for effectively global laws, as you said, for having a globalist regime for certain things in place. Because there are various things that have far-reaching accords. But think of it this way. Today, it's trying to regulate the internet. Tomorrow, well, you know, oxygen seems to travel around the world, and it seems to enter and exit a particular area without any sort of control over it. Maybe we should have laws about that and the standards of keeping the air clean, or what technology should be implemented that will actually keep it habitable and all this sort of stuff. Be a real shame if anyone found out you sponsored that Aussie lawyer we don't like. Thank you. Thank you for that, Stingy. Makes me feel so good. Could be worse, you could be arrested for posting memes like they do in the UK. I'm willing to bet that what's going on in the UK is the Petri dish this time around. Because, as I've said, there's been many times where Australia, Canada, the UK, and the US have all been Petri dishes for things that have been implemented around the world. About 5-10 years later, after they sort of test it out to see how it goes. There'll be only world laws if the US allows it. I'm far worse than boycott you. I've blocked you. I wish to go on blocking you. I shall leave you as you left me, as you left Rumble. Ignored for all eternity in the center of dead URL. Jim, the only reason I didn't start Rumble up today was because I was in a rush. And the other thing is that I've got to try a new multi-source output for OBS. And last thing I wanted to do was boomer something when I didn't have time to field test it. Because, let me put it this way. If it's at the point where Boomerberries is pissed off that I keep boomering stuff and touching buttons, I don't want to be doing any of that shit on stream, because she at different times, Boomerberries has been a avid, if not rabid, supporter of me, and if I'm pissing her off, I assume I'm pissing the rest of you off. Do you fear someone at your door because of your speech? It's always a surprise. Yes, American Dreamer. There are certain things that I do not say online that I would happily say behind closed doors, but that I would, if I were, for example, standing on dry land in the US, that I would happily say openly. And I'm acutely aware that I'm probably on a list with Julian and Grant right now, because I've made the N-word. No, I don't care about the N-word. The only reason I don't say they're just words, people. Depending on the intention behind them is what matters. They're exactly like the last Twitter clip I sent you. I saw that, Stingy. I saw that. No, it's like I said, it's all about the intention behind the words, and I don't believe that words themselves can be detrimental or injurious or whatever else. It's the intent behind them. That's where the true crime lies. So just because you say something doesn't mean that you should be arrested for it, especially not if it's like in the UK where you're criticising shit that may be considered rightly criticisable. Have a WEF meeting in Alcatraz. We won't tell them it's being renovated and fully functional. They get here, we lock the door. I like it. But they use speech here against you. No, because if I make it to the US, I'm probably not coming back. If I were able to pick everything up that I'm doing right now and drop it in the US, I probably wouldn't come back. Because it is so freaking restrictive. Yes, absolutely, Coke Fairy. Context absolutely matters. Okay, where am I? The end of GARM marks a temporary victory for Musk and ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino, even though a judge hasn't made a ruling yet. No small group should be able to monopolize what gets monetized. This is an important acknowledgement and a necessary step in the right direction. I'm hopeful that it means ecosystem-wide reform is coming, she said on Thursday. However, the lawsuit could drive away even more advertisers from X, said Nandini Jami and Claire Aitken, founders of watchdog group Check My Ads Institute, wrote in an op-ed on Thursday. There it is. Everyone can see that advertising on X is a treacherous business relationship for advertisers. Bullshit. You have a product, you want it put in front of people that are willing to buy your product. It doesn't matter what content or anything else your ads are put next to, because you're there for a business transaction. You are there to get in front of the eyes of viewers, of consumers. Whatever else is going on the platform is none of your goddamn business. I'm sorry, but when you advertise on TV or something like that, do you get to pick and choose which ads run on either side? Do you get to pick and choose which TV shows it plays during the middle of? No, you specifically want individuals to have eyes in front and glued to the screen so that your product is put in front of them. All this is you're trying to stifle individuals' speech. Mob-like tactics, what to keep in mind. Would you like an Aussie Overlaw'd ad show next to groomer content? I wouldn't like it, but I don't believe that I'd have the right to stop it. Because if I'm the one paying for a specific service, I don't get to dictate. Like, I just don't. If America had conquered and assimilated, I wonder if the Republic could be taught. What, you want to try and conquer America? What? had conquered and assimilated. Oh, okay. No, that makes more sense. Lawsuit claims that GARM organised to collectively withhold billions of dollars in advertising from Twitter because the group was concerned that the platform had deviated from brand safety standards after Musk's acquisition in late 22. GARM has over 100 members. 4 of those members, CVS, Unilever, Mars, and Danish energy company Ørsted, were named as defendants in the suit filed in federal court on Tuesday. GARM was set up in 2019 after the Christchurch, New Zealand mosque shootings, where the murderer live-streamed the shooting live on Facebook. Following that, brands faced issues where their ads were placed next to illegal or harmful content, the group said in a statement. GARM said that its group reduced such ads from 6.1% down to 1.7% in 2023. Brands raised similar concerns when Musk acquired X in 22, tanking the platform's core ad business. Many brands have pulled their spending over concerns that the ads might run alongside misinformation or hate speech, which Musk himself has occasionally promoted, allegedly, according to them. The suit also continues Musk's habit of feuding with the advertisers whose money he relies on. Last year, he told brands who had left the platform to go fuck yourself. Excuse me. Though at times X leaders hinted the company's ad business was improving, Yacarino said in a video on Monday, they conspired to boycott X, which threatens our ability to thrive in the future, she said of the GARM members, adding that the loss in advertising dollars placed the company at long-term risk. The end of GARM could raise concerns for other media watchdogs, though a judge has sided with a non-profit in a similar suit. X also sued the Center for for Countering Digital Hate. I don't know why I went with counterfeiting hate. Like being forced into how to conduct your business, do what we say or else. Exactly. That's exactly it. Unilever and Mars, great brands with no harmful content at all. All that's missing from that list is Volkswagen. X also sued the Center for Countering Digital Hate, the Center for Digital Hate, alleging the non-profit group violated its terms of services when it studied and then wrote about hate speech on the platform and blamed it for driving away advertisers. Federal judge tossed the suit in March, blasting it as an attempt to punish the Center for Countering Digital Hate for protected speech. X also sued the progressive watchdog Media Matters over its analysis highlighting anti-Semitic and pro-Yahtzee content on X, a report that appeared to play a significant role in a massive and damaging brand revolt late last year. The case is set to go to trial next year. Yet notice how that one wasn't thrown out because they manipulated the results allegedly. And yes, I do still have to say allegedly, even though I do not believe that there's anything about it. I still have to say allegedly. It's like Dana White on Peloton. They pissed him off. He said F off and ripped all their bikes off from the UFC. Huh. So it was interesting to see exactly how CNN's put that, but I thought it was interesting that their gut reaction was to immediately liquidate and like cut down. Like, that's what I'm looking for here. They're shutting it down. They're shutting GARM down as if that's in any way going to protect themselves or make it any more difficult to prove that the boycott was effectively mob-like tactics that violate antitrust laws, and it's not going to. All they're looking to say is that, oh, well, at least if we do this, hopefully it'll be each individual member of the group will need to be sued or the boycott alleged, because now there's no umbrella group. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but again, I don't specifically know whether or not there's anything in US law that would attach to that. I mean, if they're doing it purely so that, like, Unilever, Mars, and whatever that, was it CVS and Ørsted are going to cop the brunt of whatever it is, like... I saw that, Chris. Hang on. So here's what the Irish Times had to say. Advertising Coalition shuts down after X sues. An influential advertising industry group said it would shut down after being sued this week by X, Elon Musk's social media company, according to an email sent to its members. The Global Alliance for Responsible Media, a non-profit coalition of major advertisers led by the World Federation of Advertisers, told its members it would cease operations 2 days after Musk accused the group of orchestrating a boycott against X. Keep in mind that there's already been enough that's been dug into this that the House Committee said, yeah, we think this was illegal. So, crazy how they think their ideals are profitable. Well, The lawsuit claimed the group, also known as GARM, had violated antitrust laws by coordinating with brands to dissuade them from spending money on social media on the social media platform. While the World Federation of Advertisers denied that GARM's work had run afoul of any law, it said that the non-profit did not have the financial resources to continue operating while it fights X in court. At X, the news that GARM would shut down was celebrated. This is an important acknowledgement and a necessary step in the right direction, said Linda Yaccarino. The dispute stemmed from Musk's $44 billion purchase of X, then known as Twitter, in 2022, promised a new era of unrestricted free speech and annulled many of the platform's rules against hateful content and misinformation. See how they phrase this, though? Hateful content and misinformation? No, it's just that he removed certain rules that restricted freedom of speech. That's not the same thing. But that's how they try and phrase it, to make it look like it's a bad thing. You're all good, Chris. Don't stress. In the wake of the acquisition, they recommended that advertisers pause their spending, and several major companies, including CVS and Unilever, did. Those two companies were also named in X's suit. The suit against GARM is part of a broader attempt at X to push back against efforts to study and curtail toxic discourse online. The ripple effects of X's lawsuit against non-profits like GARM have contributed to problems for researchers looking into extremism, Look at how look at what they're throwing in with this. Apparently, having free speech and, kicking morons like the people running GARM out are somehow curtailing researchers' abilities to look into extremism, disinformation, and malicious online content. I call a crock of shit. Hateful content and misinformation is also free speech. This is what kills Congress lizards and commercial drones. Researchers say those lawsuits have helped amplify a coordinated right-wing campaign to paint their work as deep state conspiracy to censor free speech, which has chilled academic work on the subject and led to some projects being entirely dissolved. Oh, boo frickin' who. Have you seen what's going on in the UK at the moment? What the left does, they create arbitrary catalogues that they can throw those that disagree with them in politically. It really has no definition, just not them. Where's this lawsuit? I'm not going to read through the entire thing. 44 friggin' pages. This is an antitrust action related to a group boycott by competing advertisers of one of the most popular social media platforms in the United States. Acting with and through the World Federation of Advertisers initiative called the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, the defendants conspired along with dozens of non-defendant co-conspirators. Ooh, here's the wording. I've got a tingle at that. We can't research speech if you let people speak. It's pretty much what they're saying, yes. Yes, laughing at the academic work, exactly. The defendants conspired along with dozens of non-defendant co-conspirators to collectively withhold billions of dollars in advertising revenue from Twitter Inc. Concerned that Twitter might deviate from certain brand safety standards for advertising on social media platforms set through GARM, the conspirators collectively acted to enforce Twitter's adherence to those standards through the boycott. And the funny thing is, it's not even like this needs to be they don't even need to establish that this is the only reason why these advertisers decided to boycott X and withdraw their funding. So at this point, it's like, provided the emails exist going out from GARM to any number of these companies that had turned around and actually boycotted, if they can show that there is a direct causation and there is a pattern between them, on the balance, on the civil standard, there's evidence of a conspiracy. As a condition of GARM membership, GARM's members agree to adopt, implement, and enforce GARM's brand safety standards, including by withholding advertising from social media platforms deemed by GARM to be non-compliant with brand safety standards. So quite literally, if that's anywhere in the documentation between the parties, all GARM would have had to have done is issue an email saying, yeah, we disagree with what X is doing, therefore, in line with our standards that we've set, as a member, you are required to no longer advertise with them. Interesting to see what the member list of GARM, then compare that to ad agencies owned by Publicis, a holding company that was bought by the agency you worked at. When Elon and other investors acquired X in November 22, GARM members reached out to GARM to learn their perspectives about the Twitter situation and a possible boycott from many companies. And GARM conveyed to its members its concerns about Twitter's compliance with the standards, triggering the massive advertiser boycott that followed. Pursuant to the conspiracy, major brand advertisers, including the advertiser defendants and dozens of non-defendant co-conspirators, agreed to and did abruptly and in lockstep boycott Twitter by discontinuing entirely or substantially reducing their previously substantial advertising purchases from Twitter. As one of the defendants reported to GARM months later, when appearing to seek GARM's permission to resume advertising on Twitter, its participation in the November 22 boycott had been based on GARM's recommendation. There you go. These actions were all against the unilateral self-interest of the advertisers. Yeah, you can make that argument. They made economic sense only in furthering of a conspiracy performed in the confidence that competing advertisers were doing the same. As the same defendant raised with GARM a few months into the boycott, now some time has passed, I'm curious to know what you would advise us to do, and what are other global advertisers doing? Have they come back to Twitter's platform, or are they still off? Internally, GARM celebrated and took responsibility for the massive economic harm imposed on Twitter by the boycott, boasting within just a few months of the start of the boycott that they, Twitter, are now 80% below revenue forecasts. The boycott and its effects continue to this day, despite X applying brand safety standards comparable to those of its competitors, and which meet or exceed those specified by GARM. The conduct of the defendants and their co-conspirators is a naked restraint of trade without countervailing benefits to competition or consumers. In a competitive market, each social media platform would set the brand safety standards that are optimal for that platform and for its users and advertisers, and they would unilaterally select the platforms on which they advertise. Social media platforms that select efficient brand safety standards will thrive. Platforms that select inefficient standards will lag behind. Through this competitive process, platforms will discover and adopt brand safety practices that best promote consumer welfare. A collective action against competing advertisers to dictate brand safety standards to be applied by social media platforms shortcuts the competitive process and allows the collective views of a group of advertisers with market power to override the interests of the consumer. The Sherman Act does not allow this. The brand safety standards set by GARM should succeed or fail in the marketplace on their own merits and not through the coercive exercise of market power by advertisers acting collectively to promote their own economic interests through commercial restraints at the expense of social media platforms and their users. It's pretty freaking straightforward. The unlawful conduct alleged herein is the subject of an active investigation by the Committee on the Judiciary of the House of Representatives of Congress of the United States. After extensive investigation, including a review of documents produced in response to subpoenas issued to WFA and to GARM, and an interview of a senior GARM executive, the House Judiciary Committee issued an interim staff report on July 10, 2024. The report concluded that the extent to which GARM has organised its trade association and coordinates actions that rob consumers of choices is likely illegal under the antitrust laws and threatens fundamental American freedoms. The information uncovered to date of WFA and GARM's collusive conduct to demonetize disfavoured content is alarming. You caught the first game ball? That's pretty cool. God, and the fact that they've shut GARM down so that they can make sure that whatever damages or anything are minimal, because it is an extra step to try and prove that each of the other defendants caused the damage to them, which they technically didn't, really, in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting. How far are the factual allegations? I don't want to necessarily read through the entire damn thing. What I want to know is where and when there were... when they were taking in... that, chief marketers... GARM is governed by the steer team, which functions as GARM's board of directors. The steer team comprises representatives of Unilever... Oh, okay, here we go. That might explain why. Unilever PLC, Mars, Diageo, P&G, Group M, American Association of Advertising Agencies, Incorporated Society of British Advertisers. Damn. GARM also includes the so-called Big Six advertising agency holding companies, which together hold nearly every major advertising agency in the world. In other words, nearly all major agencies that execute advertising companies for large companies around the world actively participate in GARM. with WFA accounting for roughly 90% of the brand spend on advertising with GARM. Jesus. Including almost every advertising agency and many of the world's biggest brands, GARM members collectively exercise market power in the advertising market. Okay, you know what? I'm going to say it now. It is my personal belief that if they were that in control of the advertising, them saying that they're shutting GARM down now just means that it's going to be forced into shadows. This lawyer needs an editor run on sentences. Yeah. Whoever wrote it, they're just trying to get as much facts in as possible. I mean, pleadings don't need to necessarily make sense grammatically so long as the information is there, unfortunately. Shut it down, destroy evidence of world domination. Pretty much! Keep in mind, discovery is a double-edged sword for GARM. Oh, yeah. Acting collectively through GARM, advertisers and advertising agencies aim to realise changes to the business models of digital media and social media platforms that they would have been unable to force in the adoption of while acting unilaterally and in uncoordinated rivalry with one another. In 2019, it was explained that the genesis of GARM was as a frustration amongst the advertising members of the GARM steer team with their inability to achieve their desired outcomes in negotiations with social media platforms when acting unilaterally. There was a quote, roughly a year ago I did a breakthrough on the WFA media board to the point-to-point conversations were getting the industry nowhere. Mars was having a conversation with YouTube separate from PNG, and PNG having a conversation with Facebook, and conversations happening at a local and global level were simply inefficient and not reaching beyond advertising sales teams. In late spring, we started to drive movement around the idea of uncommon collaboration to break through the deadlock. Uncommon collaboration has all sides of the industry together. Uncommon collaboration has competitors working together. The goals that arise above individual commercial interests focus on consumers and society to drive focus that is endorsed by major customers on these platforms in a way that cannot be ignored, and finally ensure that there is access to the right decision makers who haven't been part of the demands hitherto. Way to say the quiet part out loud. Gotta push him to the darker side. I'm more worried about it them just disappearing into the background. See you, Bernice. Have a good day. Another document describing the collective exercise of market power to dictate results not achievable by advertisers acting unilaterally. GARM explains the goal is to remove harmful content from advertiser-supported media on digital media platforms and to ensure that the industry works together to ensure that it is prioritized by executives. Who the hell gave you the right to decide what content can and can't be on somebody's platform? Prioritized by the executives of the social media platforms rather than by the advertising sale teams. One example of GARM forcing changes onto the business operations of social media platforms through the collective exercise of its members' market power that they could not have achieved unilaterally comes from 22. Meta, an operator of social media platforms including Facebook and Instagram and a member of GARM, announced changes in 22 to the way that it reported to advertisers and advertising agencies where advertisements were appearing on its platform. Because they're the only one with morals. Internally, GARM celebrated this result as the outcome of the exercise of the advertiser collective market power through GARM. They wrote to the CEO of WFA, said this is the first big step for Meta and should be acknowledged as a significant win that we forced. Oh, I really want to see Discovery on this now. Okay, in addition to agreeing upon the safety standards, they adopt and implement the GARM brand safety standards in their own business operations and to enforce the implementation of brand safety standards by digital media platforms and social media platforms from which they purchase advertising. So under the agreement, they agree to enforce these standards on any company that they do business with. Yeah, no. Miss being young and thinking those claiming to be here to protect me were actually interested in my interests rather than lining their pockets. Yep. GARM member advertisers and advertising agencies agree to adopt, implement, and enforce the brand safety standards because widespread and uniform adoption and implementation of the brand safety standards promotes the economic interest of those advertisers and advertising agencies. As one GARM document provides, GARM standards rely on system-wide adoption in order to realize its goals. Thus, GARM member advertisers and advertising agencies have an economic motivation to agree to enforce the adherence of digital media and social media platforms to the GARM brand safety standards. I'm trying to think what would be a good thing for me to equate this to so that I could put it into an analogy that would make sense. Okay. For lack of a better, like, I haven't really thought this through, but this would be like a group of businesses that produce seeds for certain flowers, all getting together and forcing the local hardware store to have certain standards in relation to the timber that they sell to individuals, because it might be on display next to each other in the hardware store. It's bullshit. Giving notes of dictatorship? Yep. Look up GARM's wiki page, makes for interesting reading. Alright, I'll have a look. The agreement by and among GARM member advertisers and advertising agencies to adopt, implement, and enforce the brand safety standards is set forth in GARM's documents. Who can join GARM? Any advertiser, media agency, or media platform can join GARM, provided they're willing to align with our charter, which calls for uncommon collaboration in confronting this challenge. I don't like the... like... As soon as you take uncommon collaboration and call it what it really is, the whole thing just falls apart. It's unfair use of market power. Here in Australia, we have specific laws against that. So does the US, antitrust laws. But we literally have it called misuse of market power, so that it's obvious to, like, anyone that goes onto the ACCC website that you understand someone cannot use a monopoly by tying together all of these companies and effectively turn it into a monopoly, because that's what they're doing, and forcing someone to do something. That's misuse of market power, irrespective of however many people come together to do that. Because if it's all if they all come together to push one thing as part of a collective bargaining that, and it's not, well, I mean, this isn't bargaining, it's unilateral. If they all come together as a organization like under GARM, it's kind of illegal. Could be tortious interference if there's a previous contract. That's a good point too. Like a protection racket or advertising racket. Membership currently includes more than 60 of the world's biggest advertisers, all 6 major agency holding companies, and 7 industry groups, as well as 10 media platforms. Agreement by-in on GARM's advertiser and advertising agency members to adopt, implement, and enforce the GARM brand safety standards require those advertisers and advertising agencies to limit or discontinue their purchases of advertising from digital media and social media platforms that are not compliant with brand safety standards. If each of these companies had come to the conclusion on their own, there wouldn't be an issue here. They would be free to pick and choose and do whatever they want. The fact that this is a requirement from GARM, who has passed it down the line to each of their members, and that they say that it is a requirement for them to comply with these standards and a requirement for them to enforce these standards on someone else, is what brings us into collusion and misuse of market power, in my opinion. The web mafia. Pretty much. CVS Health manifested its assent to the agreement by and among GARMs.
Jonathan Irwin has donated $2 and says sounds like the Lycene scandal from the 90s.
Thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate it. That come through twice. Huh. Anyway. Other GARM member advertisers have similarly manifested agreement by and among GARM advertiser members to adopt, implement, and enforce brand safety standards by stating publicly that they adhere to the brand safety standards in the purchase of digital advertising and endeavour to make no more than 1% of their advertising purchase in connection with content falling below the safety floor. What a crock of shit. Unilever as well have told X that X's compliance with the safety standards and full participation in GARM's internal processes are conditions precedent to the purchasing of digital advertising from X by those advertisers. That's why Unilever was one of the major defendants, because they've actually openly said that that's the reason why they stopped. Wow.
Ossie has donated $20.00 and says Graham.
Double check. That puts us $5 away from dog count. I'm going to have to go and wake the dog. Thank you very much for that, Aussie Tank. Appreciate it. That's a big gram. We're here for your safety, lol. But we also want to be... Oh, damn it. What do you mean you can't spell? What the hell did you mean to spell? I don't want to know. So Unilever openly said that that's the reason they're pulling away. Members and advertising agencies enforce the implementation of brand safety standards by digital media and social media platforms in multiple ways, including by exchanging information with and through GARM about the implementation of... Oh, GARM. GARM! Another way in which the GARM members and advertising agencies enforce the brand standards through the advertising boycotts. Deemed by GARM not to be complying by boycotts of digital media and social media. For example, GARM members, including Unilever, Mars, CVS Health, boycotted Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter in 2022 with the goal of forcing them to adhere to the brand safety standards. WFA facilitated this boycott by surveying WFA members about their willingness to boycott these social media platforms and disseminating the results of the survey to its members. The boycott ended once Meta and Twitter agreed in discussions with the GARM steer team with Unilever US to adhere to the brand safety standards. That's some bullshit. Unilever, one lever to control it all. Coca-Cola executive wrote, I'm specifically wondering if anyone has said that they are boycotting Spotify from an advertising perspective. I know that Spotify have recently joined GARM, but I'm also aware that they have not published anything around the compliance with the policies. It'd be great to hear from you if you've heard from any of the advertisers, although I appreciate you might not be able to say which advertisers have made comment. Adhere to our rules and beliefs, or we will make sure that no one does business with you. What does that sound like? Are they part of the WEF? You'll own it, nothing, and be happy. We'll have a look at the wiki page in a bit. I'm curious. Gravely concerned about the lack of fundamental policies and decision-making on your platform. There's a statement backed by the steer team, which you will recall functions as the board of directors and brings together P&G, Unilever, blah, blah, blah. Little disappointed at the lack of seriousness in this meeting is being handled with, and we've held back on press commentary on this incident out of deference. So Spotify basically turned around and said, well, like, we're willing to do whatever, but we're not, yeah, it's extortion, in my opinion, Kate. If Spotify did not give in to GARM's demands, they threatened to publicly convey GARM's view that Spotify was not adhering to the brand safety standards, which would, pursuant to GARM's rules, trigger a boycott of Spotify by GARM member advertisers and advertiser agencies, just as Coca-Cola had suggested 5 days earlier. That's extortion. Do this, or we go public and tell everyone that you're not doing it, and we will boycott you as a result. Boycott of Twitter, we know the details about that, but I'm more curious about what the... Effectively removing harmful... Brand safety is non-negotiable for advertising. The industry has come a long way in developing industry standards that drive increased transparency and control in the interest of consumer safety. Bullshit. Despite the transition of ownership, we expect Twitter to uphold its previous commitments to GARM and to continue to engage with GARM. We're monitoring Twitter's actions, and such as setting up a content moderation review panel and assessing their design, governance, and potential to improve implementation. We'll share these views with members as we have with previous events. GARM members will continue to leverage such insights as part of their own independent assessments and decision-making processes. Bullshit. As soon as you put out anything that says that it would be best to boycott. Wait, what was that? Former Unilever executive now works for Channel 2, as if there aren't plans already taking place. Internal leverage. Yep. New industry-defining standards can be set here. We're eagerly awaiting to see how Twitter can uniquely answer this. Platform should be safe for all and suitable for advertisers. For advertisers, this is non-negotiable. We expect Twitter to uphold its commitment to GARM. No, fuck off. Twitter can set up its own platform however the hell it wanted to. And coming in and trying to dictate and basically use misuse of market power in order to do so is, in my opinion, a violation of antitrust law. So this will be interesting to exactly see how far this goes. I mean, The fact that they've decided to dissolve GARM and try and limit whatever liability there was, because that's effectively, as a result of this suit, Musk and X will need to turn around and say, well, each one of these other defendants caused the harm that has befallen X. I mean, you can't really get blood out of a stone, but I mean, if... The purpose and effect of the two public statements were to communicate proposed terms of coordination to competing advertisers. There were plans for conspiracy promulgated through the collective action of competing advertisers. Both communications conveyed that GARM had promulgated the brand safety standards, that advertisers collectively desired Twitter to adhere to them, and to promote the economic interests of advertisers, that the demand was non-negotiable, and that WFA and GARM expected Twitter to commit to implementation adherence to it, and that advertisers would collectively be awaiting the evidence of Twitter's implementation adherence. You can get blood out of a stone, does that count? How the hell do you get blood out of it? Wait, what? What sort of stone do you have that you can get blood out of? No, you know what? I don't want to know. Brand safety. Well, wouldn't Disney be a threat to the brand of Star Wars? You can get blood out of a kidney stone? Are you serious? Read it slowly. I can get blood out with a stone. Oh, that's what you meant. No, that doesn't count. That's funny, though. It doesn't count. WFA's statement in its October 31, 2022 communication said it would share these views with its members, who would leverage such insights as part of their own independent assessments and decision-making processes. I love that they included that there, because that would specifically go against trying to say, well, we're not dictating a boycott. We're saying here's going to be our suggestion, and each individual company that we represent and as part of our group will make their own independent decision. Bullshit. Blood often accompanies a kidney stone. Statements made publicly. Economic theory. Advertising agency members of GARM quickly followed the Hang on, wait, what? Skip something there. WFA intended to facilitate a boycott of Twitter through its communications on October 31, 22. The advertising agency members of GARM quickly followed the October 31, 22 communication with announcements of their own, recommending to their clients that they suspend paid advertising on Twitter. On or about 1 November, GARM member Interpublic Group, one of the big 6 advertising agency holding companies, recommended that clients of its IPG Media Brands agency suspend all paid advertising on Twitter for at least a week. On or about November 1, GARM member Havas, one of the other big 6 advertising agency holding companies, recommended that clients suspend paid advertising on Twitter. Sometime between November 2 and November 7, member Dentsu, one of the other big 6 advertising holding companies, recommended that clients suspend paid advertising on Twitter. No later than November 11, GARM member Omnicom Media Group, one of the other big 6 advertising agencies, recommended that its clients pause activity on Twitter in the short term. No later than November 14, GARM group member Group M, a component of one of the big 6 advertising agencies, said that it viewed Twitter to be high risk, a recommendation to its clients not to advertise on Twitter. No later than December 13, 22, GARM member Publicis, one of the big 6 advertising agencies. Yeah, you get the point. The point is, within a space of 2 weeks, every one of the major advertising agency holdings had told them to not advertise. Don't do it. And given that each of the members, being a member of GARM, is held to enforcing the standards, they can say that it's a recommendation. But it's not really a recommendation, in my opinion, because if you have something that is binding on your members and they agree to enforce it, and you say, well, in our opinion, they're violating these, kind of a term, irrespective of however you want to phrase it, then, it's misuse of market power, because you're effectively saying to everyone, no, you need to do this. Well, the chances of internal communications show that they pulled advertising based off ideology or politics? No clue, honestly. I will be very interested to see what Discovery looks like in this. Can't an agency just dissolve wherever the legal action against them? Well, that's effectively what they've done. GARM has dissolved as of 2 days ago. Actually, yesterday. They turned around and said that they were shutting down GARM, and so it's basically the defendants in the matter are going to be the 4 of the main companies that boycotted them as a result. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult for X, in my opinion, to win the case now, because they need to show that each of the individual companies collectively engaged in what we'll call a conspiracy to boycott. They can still hold the people at GARM responsible, but again, what's the point if it's shut down and defunct? What's the point? If I was Elon, I'd be following this through to the bitter end just so we had the precedent for it to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. Because there's nothing to say that it doesn't become a Phoenix organization. They shut it down. It goes into a backroom meeting somewhere where the gents are all sitting around smoking cigars and saying, okay, well, clearly we can't have this as an open, non-profit thing, whatever else, and we need to be more careful in the future to make sure we don't get caught. Have the principal officers with personal liability to go after. Yeah, but at the same time, Trenton, I don't see that... Because what they really need to do is try and stamp out the practice entirely, which, you know, sort of how, like, Weather Underground become the WEF. Recommendations of the GARM member advertising agencies to their clients to refrain from advertising on Twitter were widely followed. Many of Twitter's largest advertisers discontinued or curtailed their purchases from advertising on Twitter. On November 3, Musk met with representatives of more than 100 advertisers and advertising agencies to assure them of his intent and plans to keep Twitter attractive to advertisers. In November, GARM membership discussed an assessment developed by GARM's steer team of Twitter's implementation of the brand safety standards. The assessment developed by the steer team noted that brand safety concerns with Twitter's adherence to GARM standards. Between November 7 and November 14, the steer team conducted a survey described as a WFA GARM benchmark survey of the members and GARM members, including both advertisers and advertising agencies. The survey sought information related to the plans of these competing advertisers have with respect to purchasing advertising on Twitter. Purpose and effect of the survey was to facilitate a boycott of Twitter by gathering and then disseminating information about the willingness of competing advertisers. Hey, David. Paper trail would be so difficult to find even between so many companies. Quite possible, yeah. Change the name, change the... Take a look at Disney. It's getting real expensive to do this level of stupid. Purpose and effect of the survey was to facilitate. Yeah. Previously done the survey. 118 advertisers and advertising agencies that were members of the WFA and GARM responded to the survey. They shared the results of the survey with members of the executive committee and widely amongst GARM. GARM member Orsted contacted Rakowitz seeking guidance of GARM's views of Twitter's compliance. Reaching out to you asked if it's possible to arrange a meeting to hear more about your perspectives about the Twitter situation and possible boycott from many companies. As you know, we have a focus on responsible marketing and we're about to make a recommendation to management about actions and when we need to consider whether we should continue promotion on the platform or find alternatives. It's an important platform for us in the US market and it will have an impact that we need to assess and outline. So they knew that removing themselves from Twitter would be against their own individual bottom line. So... Sounds good with the survey and the talk with Twitter and Elon Musk. Would very much like to know more as soon as you have the results. When do you expect to have it? Do you think Tuesday next will be realistic? So they were trying to push for it so they could do it with their own shareholder meeting or whatever, board meeting. Following the conversation communication, had to make a situation complication resolution presentation to top management based on your recommendations. Separately, I connected with the 4As and Group M yesterday. They're pleased with the concessions, especially the social listening, since that proves/disproves the safety of the platform. UL will not trust until they see the data and have said that they have issues with overtly partisan... Holy shit! UL, presumably Unilever, in correspondence specifically responded saying that they didn't like Twitter having information that was overly partisan, for example, in relation to the Hunter Biden laptop expose. On December 1st, the WFA Executive Committee met with Twitter's new leadership team to discuss their commitment to the brand safety, blah, blah, blah. Meeting was held to discuss advertiser concerns over the platform under the Chatham House rules. Conversation focused on the continued commitments to GARM around common definitions, common measures, common tools, and independent verification. Twitter's leadership was engaged and committed to working with GARM to document brand safety measures currently in place and develop a roadmap for future things. The steer team will work with Twitter and make this roadmap, blah, blah, blah. Promised to publicly share the plan from bringing Twitter into compliance with GARM was intended to and did provide a roadmap for the advertisers and advertiser agencies boycotting Twitter to understand the terms on which the boycott would continue and upon GARM's permission it might someday end. About to go GARM on the goddamn bread ad that plays every 5 minutes. Really? Are the ads that bad still? I specifically cut it down from balanced down to low. There's supposed to be significantly less ads in this episode. Twitter are already working against these mechanisms, many of which have been shared with GARM community, seeking to become GARM members and to demonstrate the advertisers their adherence to brand safety standards. Other sellers of digital advertising reference GARM's actions against Twitter and the perception that GARM and its members had deemed Twitter not to be complying with the GARM safety standards and had taken disciplinary action against it. For example, Quizlet, a digital advertising platform and advertising seller, emailed GARM on November 22, asking in part, is there a way for Quizlet ads to become approved or certified by GARM? I found the framework online. Is there any way for publishers to use the framework to show that they are following GARM standards? In a subsequent email, Quizlet referred expressly to GARM's actions against Twitter. Other than the Twitter statement that was released a few weeks ago, are there any other cases that where GARM took any kind of action against a company that has claimed to be in line with GARM standards? Why would Unilever give two shits about Hunter's laptop? It's a damn good question, MG. Probably because, I don't know, they're backing one side of politics over the other. GARM internally discussed the connection between its conduct and other advertiser boycott of Twitter, as well as delighting in the enormous harm its boycott had already caused. While editing a February 23 draft of an email to TikTok regarding safety brand issues, Rakowitz wrote, I'd like to point out that there was nowhere in this email is the you may recognize my name for being the idiot who challenged Musk on brand safety issues, since they are now 80% below revenue forecasts. He appended a form of smiley face emoji to the end of that message. Since the news about Musk acquiring Twitter, we chose to take off all of our paid advertising off the platform due to brand safety concerns. This was decided in Q4 2022. Now some of the time has passed, and I'm curious to know what you would advise us to do. What are the other global advertisers doing? Have they come back to the platform, or are they still off? 9 days later, the House Judiciary Committee contacted GARM in connection with the committee's investigation. Now, aware of its activities had attracted interest from the House Judiciary Committee, WFA did not respond to Orsted's March 13, 2023 email. So Orsted responded again saying, can you please advise what the latest update is regarding Twitter? Or perhaps you can have a place where I can read more about your perspective on the Twitter platform after Musk's acquisition. Based on your recommendations, we have stopped all paid advertisement because the platform was rather unsafe due to Elon's decision to fire a lot of resources, etc., and therefore little control over the content on the platform. But it's an important platform for us to reach our audience, so we'd like to consider going back. We just need to know whether or not the platform is safe. Jesus. As decided and intended by the conspirators, shortly after Twitter's merger with Musk-controlled entities, a substantial portion of Twitter's existing advertising customers, including GARM member advertisers and advertising agencies, as well as advertisers who were clients of GARM member advertising agencies, abruptly discontinued or sharply curtailed their purchases in the advertising from Twitter. Between November 22 and December 22, at least 18 GARM member advertisers, including the defendants, stopped purchasing advertising from Twitter either in the United States or worldwide. Of the remaining GARM member advertisers that had been purchasing from Twitter in October 22, dozens more substantially reduced their purchases over the course of 2023, in many instances by over 70%. Members advertised acted in parallel to discontinue their purchases of advertising from Twitter in a marked departure from the prior pattern. Mars purchased no advertising from Twitter in the United States and only de minimis amount outside of the United States after October. Orsted purchased no advertising from November 22 onwards. Unilever purchased no more than small amounts out of advertising from Twitter or X in the United States after December 22. CVS Health cut its purchasing in advertising in November and then again in December 22, and then purchased no advertising from December 22 onwards. The boycott of Twitter and now X through GARM continues to the present day, despite the fact that the brand's safety practices meet or exceed those specified by the GARM brand safety standards. More than 99% of X's measured ad placement in 23 and 24 appeared adjacent to content scored above the GARM brand safety floor, in line with industry standards. What a joke. I do wonder at the moment if it's one of the subversion sets. Feels to me like they will never be stopped. I know that feels away. Okay, I must miss. Basically, people that push nonsense to force people onto boards and into leadership roles. Is a good way of looking at it. Adhering to brands because the digital advertising social media platform is a product without close economic substitutes. The boycott of Twitter, the boycott of Twitter predictably caused GARM member advertisers and advertising agencies to shift their advertising purchases to other social media platforms rather than to other sellers of advertising. These other social media platforms do not need to lower the price for which they offer to sell advertising to match the low prices offered by Twitter, because these other social media platforms are all GARM members and know that the GARM member advertisers and advertising agencies have agreed not to purchase advertising from Twitter now X, eliminating the need for those other social media platforms to compete with Twitter now X in the sale of advertising to GARM member advertisers and advertising agencies. Type too soon, just got a 5-second ad. Markets and market power, blah, blah, blah. So the claim for the relief. Conduct of the defendants and their conspirators alleged herein in a group boycott in violation of Section 1 of the Sherman Act. Defendants and their co-conspirators agreed to boycott Twitter by withholding...
Kathy Trout has donated $5 and says, did I hear we were only $5 from Doggo Cam?
Yes, well...
Thumbs up, everyone.
Thank you very much for that. That does mean we are on Doggo Cam, so I shall go and retrieve her. I'll be back in a moment. Oh, hang on. What's that? What do I need? It's fine. GARM sounds like a bit like price fixing. That's effectively what it feels like to me too, yes. And we're back. And we are on Dogcam. Zoom this in a little bit more. Okay. His own side is a protest to Ticketmaster and Parent Company. Oh, the health status stuff. Yep. Did the girl swallowing the golf ball survive? I'm pretty sure that was a gimmick. I'm pretty sure she didn't actually swallow the golf ball at the beginning. A pretty girl. Yeah. Wag the tail. Wag the tail. Who's a pretty girl? Who's a pretty girl? Yeah, there you go. A Stingy clip would look good in one of those. Oh, relax, Stinge. For those of you that don't know, Stingy has been taking it upon himself to go through and use my now is not the time Stingy clip and adding it to all number of stitches, basically, to see what best one sticks. And his most recent one, I think, probably fits the bill the best. And you know what? Just for the hell of it, I'm going to show it because, you know what? It kind of does need the attention.
Not be ignored! Get back in here!
How do I need to download it? See, the trouble is, Stinge, I don't know how to do that without... Oh, wait, hang on. Yes, I do, actually. Can actually change that. Sorry, won't be a second. Yeah, you know what? Fine. Now is not the time.
Will not be ignored! Get back in here! Get back in here and love me! Ah!
Yeah, you know what? And that's pretty much what it's like. So, anyway, back to it. You know what? I can discuss... Oh, damn it! Okay, there we go. Impressed by the aim of the golfer? Yeah. Well, you know. Anyway, okay, so the conduct of the defendants and their co-conspirators alleged herein in a group boycott in violation of the Sherman Act to boycott Twitter by withholding purchase of digital advertising from Twitter. The conduct of the defendants and their co-conspirators alleged is herein per se illegal, or in the alternative, illegal under the rule of reason or a quick look analytical framework. There are no pre-competitive efforts of the group boycott, which has not been reasonably related to or reasonably necessary for any pre-competitive objectives of the GARM brand safety standards. Alternatively, there is no pre-competitive effects of the group boycott that outweigh its substantial anti-competitive effects, or that could not be achieved through less restrictive means. The conduct of the defendants and their co-conspirators caused injury and damage to the X in the form of loss of profits. The conduct of the defendants and their co-conspirators has injured and damaged X in the form of diminished equity value and goodwill, diminishing the value of X as a going concern. Just had a flashback of my little brother and his need for all the attention. Well, you know. Information exchange. The alleged conduct herein constitutes an unlawful agreement to exchange competitively sensitive information among competing advertisers in violation of Section 1 of the Sherman Act. Ooh, hello. Didn't think of that. Defendants and their co-conspirators agreed to exchange information relating to their willingness to and intent to boycott Twitter by withholding purchases of digital advertising from it. Funny how the dumb Dems still blame corporations for stuff and say the reps are only for big business, when it's actually the left that's favouring big business and the CEOs trying to push the DEI stuff. No comment. The conduct of the defendants and their co-conspirators alleged herein is unlawful by rule of reason, as facilitating a boycott of X. Through GARM, defendants and their co-conspirators exchanged, disseminated, and discussed non-public and forward-looking and competitively sensitive information relating to the intentions of competing advertisers with respect to the purchase of digital advertising from the plaintiff. The information exchange had the likely and actual effect of making each competing advertiser's decision to curtail the purchase of digital advertising from the plaintiff more likely and more profitable than otherwise would have been the case. Excuse me. There was nothing pre-done. So, what they're after, this will be interesting, because I'll need to see exactly what they've said here, what they're after, and how it's going to apply now that GARM is going to be going down the shitter. Wherefore, the plaintiff respectfully prays for relief and judgment against defendants as follows. That the court enter an order declaring the defendants' actions as set forth in the complaint violate the law. That the court hold the defendants jointly and severally liable for the injuries caused by each of them and their non-defendant co-conspirators, and award the plaintiffs actual damages in an amount to be determined at trial, which such amount to be trebled as permitted by a law. Law of reason sounds a bit soft-sit. No, law of reason is a standard when it comes to antitrust law. Don't stress about that. It's not soft-sit related, thankfully. Ooh, I almost swore again. Save the world, buy an EV. Save a virgin, ride a slut. It's the same thing. The court hold the defendants jointly and severally liable. That the court award plaintiff pre- and post-judgment interest. That the court award costs. That the court award the plaintiff a permanent injunction under Section 16 of the Clayton Act, enjoining the defendants from continuing to conspire with respect to the purchase of advertising from the plaintiff, and the court awards such other relief as the court may deem fit and proper, and they want it in front of a jury. We the people were screwed. The second SCOTUS ruled that money is speech and corporations are people. Oh! Oh! Look who's, look who's representing. The Dylan Law Group. Oh, I know there's no way in hell that I could get Ron's opinion on this because it's an active case, but sometimes you just want to, you know? John C. Sullivan, Brenner, Jonathan Shaw, and Andrew. Rohakvich emotional but forthcoming. Yeah, because they're all going to be practicing from out of state, so yeah, I think that this one's going. Don't worry, I found a whole new slew of material to insert you into. I sent you some. Oh, crap. Okay. Okay. So, I mean, this will be interesting to see exactly where this pans out. I mean, the fact that GARM is now disbanding, I think, would be Clayton Actor Blowy. I think it's going to be difficult for them to get awarded damages against the other plaintiffs when, in my opinion, it was the actual collusion between the individuals at GARM that has resulted in the boycott. And that's clearly why they've decided that it'd be a good idea to, shall we say, dissolve it and hope for the best. But, I mean, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, this... Rich, don't give him ideas. Anyway, that was a little bit document heavy. Can you just prevent this entire lawsuit by disbanding the group? Seems like a very abusive system. No, you can't. So disbanding the group itself does not prevent the lawsuit because GARM itself is not one of the plaintiffs here. You've got the World Federation of Advertisers who arranged GARM. GARM itself was made up of executives from various other companies who were members of GARM. 4 of them being Unilever, Mars, CVS Health, and Orsted. They're basically just trying to rope in as many of the major players that... The other thing that I'm thinking is maybe that these are the ones that they had some sort of correspondence from, that they wouldn't have to necessarily do a fishing expedition to find correspondence. So... But no, I fully expect that this will go for... This one will probably take years. But I'll be very interested to see exactly how this plays out. Because as dry as this was, so sorry for sitting and reading through it. I appreciate everyone that's stuck around for it. World Federation of Smacks of Marxism. No shit, you think? Oh, actually, hang on. Who suggested that I have a look at the GARM wiki page? GARM Crater, GARM Glacier, GARM Tajikistan, GARM Oblast, Global Alliance of Responsible Media. What do we got? World Federation of Advertisers. World Federation of Advertisers, WFA, is a global association of multinational marketers and national advisors associations. Its membership makes up over 140 of the world's top brands and national associations in more than 60 markets. So, yeah, if these guys say, if these guys turn around and go, yeah, we're saying that we don't want to be involved with a particular company, there's a good chance that it's going to result in a boycott, in my personal opinion. WFA's aim is to champion effective and sustainable marketing communications worldwide. Bullshit. It was founded in Stresa, Italy on 14th May 1953 as the Union of International Associations de Annonceurs at the initiative of 10 existing national advertising associations representing Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, India, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Sweden, Switzerland, and the UK. In 1984, fitting, at the Rio de Janeiro World Congress, the UIAA changed its name to the World Federation of Advertisers. In 2019, WFA formed the Global Alliance of Responsible Media, a global cross-industry alliance which aims to improve digital safety and eliminate harmful online content. What makes you think you've got the right to? Governments don't have the right to. What makes you think that you do, just because you're a private company or a conglomeration of private companies? Honestly, Kate, I don't reckon it'll be settled. I don't think that they can afford to. Admitting to violating antitrust law in that sort of way, or it would not be in Musk's interest, in my opinion. Here we go. GARM is made up of advertisers, agencies, media companies, platforms, and industry organizations, and is part of the World Economic Forum platform for shaping the future of media, entertainment, and culture. Is part of the World Economic Forum's platform for shaping the future of media, entertainment, and culture. The Alliance has introduced guidelines concerning misinformation and new standards on ad placements following an antitrust lawsuit from Elon Musk's Twitter. Well, they couldn't even call it X. The WFA will shut GARM down. I wonder if I can edit this to make it X. In 2024, the United States House Committee on the Judiciary released a report claiming that large companies, advertising agencies, and industry associations coordinated through GARM to withhold spending on advertisements that would fund online content that they disfavored. Oh, we actually have. The chair of the committee, Republican Congressman Jim Jordan, had previously accused GARM of violating United States antitrust law. Shaping equals control. Yep. Whole point behind it is that they get to control your rights and what rights means for you. Yep. This in 2019, WFA formed a steering group of advertisers and national associations to develop a set of global principles for cross-media measurement of the media ecosystem. In September 22, an industry framework was released which aims to set the parameters for cross-media measurement solutions. Digital platforms include Google and Meta were involved in the development of a technical proposal to meet the principles outlined in the WFA framework. WFA is a founding member of the Unstereotype Alliance, UN Women's flagship partnership with the marketing industry to eradicate harmful gender stereotypes in advertising, launched during the 2017 Cannes Lion International Festival of Creativity. Also a founding member of the Coalition for Better Ads, a cross-industry initiative to improve consumers' experiences with online advertising. I'm looking at Ben Shapiro. Shapiro, along with Unilever USA President Harish Patel, a hearing on Wednesday called Collusion. Okay, hang on. Maybe going into overtime here if the hearing was televised. Oh, hang on, what's this? Hang on. Relatively recent breaking news, apparently. Global Advertising Alliance has discontinued its corporate responsibility program after a lawsuit from X accused the group of orchestrating a massive advertiser boycott. World Federation of Advertisers told the members on Thursday that it would shut down GARM. Oh, okay, that's all it is. Social media firm filed an antitrust lawsuit, blah, blah, blah. We've already read through all. Musk claimed advertisers fleeing in light of such a policy change were engaging in blackmail, and in a profanity-laced rant told them to stay away. That's one way of describing it. WFA responded to a request for comment by saying that it would issue a statement shortly. Unilever, Mars, and CVS Health did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The ad tech watchdog Check My Ad said that the suit was likely to make more advertisers flee the platform. I doubt that. Oh, it's there, but it's 4 hours long. Oh, hang on. first. Oh. You know what? I will put the YouTube link to this video in the link to this in the description of this video, and if you want to watch it, you can go and watch it yourself. I don't have the time to sit here and just watch the 3.5 hours of it right at this second because I still have to be up and doing things with the Munchkin in the morning. Do opening and closing statements. Case done. We'll listen to a little bit of it. I want to hear what they have to say at the start anyway. So, look, that's a fair and reasonable thing, I think. Where are we? You know what? I'll switch this across to trial stream with Doggo as well. No, you know what? I'm going to go pee, and then we'll start this. Alright, and we're back. Sorry about that. Where are we? I want to go trial stream. Dog cam on. You know, I'll just play that.
Committee will come to order without objection. The chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. We welcome everyone to today's hearing on collusion in the Global Alliance for Responsible Media. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Alabama to lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'll be honest, that caught me off guard. I was like, shit, do I even breathe?
Chair is now recognized for an opening statement. Section 1 of the Sherman Act makes anti-competitive restraints of trade illegal. This includes coordinated actions that harm consumers by limiting the choices available to Americans. That is exactly what the World Federation of Advertisers, the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, and every company that is a member of these organizations has done over the last 5 years. They came together, agreed to limit advertising on certain platforms and news outlets that millions of Americans choose to read, watch, and listen to. And how did they do this? WFA members represent roughly 90% of the global advertising spend. That means WFA has almost complete monopoly power over advertising dollars and a tremendous amount of market power. GARM, which is an initiative of the WFA, includes in its membership over 100 of the world's biggest brands, ad tech providers, and advertising agencies. GARM has representatives from each of the 6 major advertising agency holding companies. GARM's steer team, which acts as a board of directors for the organization and approves nearly every action by the alliance, includes Unilever and other massive consumer goods companies, as well as Group M, the world's largest media buying agency. They collude to make sure that no other advertisers support any news outlets, platforms, or creators that these massive companies don't agree with. And these people do not like conservatives. Again, don't take my word for it. Here's what employees at Group M said to GARM's leader about Fox News, The Daily Wire, and Breitbart News. Employees from Group M said, quote, they hated their ideology. That employee was discussing how to pull advertising from these news outlets. And unfortunately, it's not just Group M. Unilever encouraged Facebook to label one of President Trump's political ads as misinformation during the 2020 election, which would have caused that ad to be removed from Facebook. GARM organized a boycott of Twitter when Mr. Musk bought the platform and bragged about cutting Twitter, and then they bragged about cutting Twitter's revenue by 80%. Unilever wrote to GARM's leader that the company had, quote, issues with overtly partisan takes by Elon Musk. The example Unilever gave was Elon Musk's handling of the Hunter Biden laptop story. Unilever had a problem with Elon Musk releasing internal Twitter documents to journalists and exposing how and why Twitter incorrectly suppressed the story about the Biden's family influence peddling. It's the Twitter files.
Interesting.
GARM and its members threaten platforms that don't comply, and the best example is Spotify's Joe Rogan's comments on Spotify when Joe Rogan's comments about the COVID-19 vaccine. To be clear, any of these companies could, on their own, legally refuse to advertise on a certain platform or news outlet or with a certain content creator. Unilateral decisions are not illegal. But if they...
Speaking of which, people, I haven't had a sponsor in, like, ages because I no longer sponsor my own content. If anyone is out there that decides they want to back a certain content creator, feel free to hit me up with an email. But for those of you that are watching, make sure you hit that like button, and thank you for everyone that's hit subscribe.
They choose to pull advertising from the Daily Wire or other similar outlets, they will not be reaching millions of Americans who choose to consume that content, but their competitors will. In other words, no single company can unilaterally pull its advertising dollars off a platform or news outlet over a long period of time because that company's competitors will advertise and reach the audience. It's called the market. Ørsted, a Danish renewable energy company, explained it perfectly when its employees wrote an email to GARM asking when the Twitter boycott will end. Ørsted told GARM that Twitter, quote, is an important platform for us to reach our audience, so we would like to consider going back. But they looked to GARM for direction, and they were asking GARM for permission. And frankly, that's exactly how cartels operate. They collude against conservatives and other outlets, platforms, and content creators. In fact, they come right out and say it. GARM's leader wrote that the issue with the advertising industry and digital platforms is the, quote, extreme global interpretation of the U.S. Constitution. He also complained taking U.S. norms and applying them globally is something that's a concern, and said there's a problem with Americans' 230-year-old Constitution. If the WFA and GARM are allowed to continue, if these massive companies can collude without consequences, the results will be devastating. If this cartel continues to target conservative outlets, content creators with different voices and viewpoints, and any person that does not recite the so-called mainstream media talking points, there'll be real problems. They will deprive these good journalists and content creators of the funding they need to succeed. They will use their cartel to eliminate competition based on internal biases of these massive companies, and they will deprive Americans of the content that they actually want to consume. With that, I would yield to the ranking member for an opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, this hearing has nothing to do with antitrust laws, since the majority's allegations wither under even the most basic antitrust analysis.
Okay, I'll be interested to see exactly what he... you know what? I'm just going to let him go. Although, I'm given how slow he's talking, I might turn it up to 1.25.
This is instead another dangerous effort by the majority to bully companies into promoting and supporting far-right extremist views, views that brands understandably do not want to be associated with. In this case, the majority seeks to undermine companies' First Amendment rights and to make it harder for them to avoid monetizing online and offline harm through advertising. This includes harm like the creation and distribution of exploitative images and videos of children, the promotion of terrorism and funding of terrorist organizations, the promotion and distribution of foreign propaganda materials, and the promotion and distribution of racist, hateful, and discriminatory content. Under the majority's theory of supposed antitrust harm, advertisers who do not want their expensive ad campaigns placed next to hate speech, pirated copyrighted material, foreign propaganda, and other harmful content are, quote, colluding
No. On the basis that they come to that conclusion and they come to that decision on their own, they're not in violation of antitrust because it's an individual decision. When, as a group, they decide to use such a decision to bully or strong-arm another individual, then it's collusion and violates antitrust. This is just colluding conspire to do it. Exactly.
To demonetize so-called conservative content. Under the majority's theory, the only way to cure this alleged harm would be for advertisers to be forced to run ads on platforms like Twitter, now known as X, Truth Social, Breitbart, and the Daily Wire, even though those sites are rife with adult content, hate speech, false information, misinformation, and racist and violent propaganda. Further undermining this claim of harm, the so-called victims of this made-up scheme are well supported by ad revenue, subscriber revenue, and sales revenue. Take the Daily Wire, the media outlet run by Republican witness Ben Shapiro. Its website generated $220 million last year. His show is the 13th most popular podcast in the first quarter of 2024. His website has over 15 million followers across his main social media handles, including on sites that are members of the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, known as GARM, the target of today's hearing.
Scum!
And the Daily Wire,
God bless you,
received more
YouTube, with
likes,
your
shares,
captions.
and comments on Facebook, unquote, which we should note is a member of GARM, than any other news publisher by a wide margin in 2021. And even the video in which Mr. Shapiro claims to be the victim of global advertising organizations was itself supported by advertising revenue and is available on YouTube, a member of GARM. This hardly sounds like the victim of a conspiracy to suppress content. But Mr. Shapiro's content is not alone. Many so-called conservative brands have made notable gains in corporate reputation among consumers, and several brands that call themselves anti-woke have entered the market to cater to customers who wish to vote with their wallet. Advertisers have the right to target their ads to the platforms, websites, and venues they choose. By forcing advertisers to run ads on websites that they deem to contain harmful information and content, the majority would be undermining those companies' right to free speech under the First Amendment. It's also an essential tenet of a free market that companies are not forced to do business with anyone. And indeed, a competitive online environment is necessary.
It's also an essential tenet that they be not forced to not do business with someone, which is a fundamental requirement under GARM because it's literally, if you join them, you agree to enforce the standards on third parties that you do business with.
For advertisers to easily choose where and how their ads are rolled out. Historically, this committee has worked hard to protect consumers, ensure a free and fair market, and push back on corporate abuse, greed, and malfeasance. We advanced bipartisan bills to combat market concentration, from online platforms to drug pricing. We did all this because we took our job seriously, to protect competition in the marketplace. We understood the unique importance of the federal antitrust laws, not as a weapon to use against our political opponents, but as an essential component of the American social contract. Unfortunately, this majority has picked a different direction. Under the direction of the chair, the committee is abusing its oversight authority. The Republicans are so committed to the belief that conservative content, in quotes, is being censored, despite all evidence to the contrary, that they will do anything to undermine the efforts of platforms to moderate their own content, which is
I'm literally 2 minutes away from being able to drop the C-bomb.
Their First Amendment rights. Governments to communicate with platforms about security threats, online and offline crime and terrorism, and mis- and disinformation that threatens our nation's health and democracy, and companies to choose where and how to advertise their products. This hearing is the result of a 15-month investigation that has resulted in over 37 productions to the committee of more than 175,000 pages and one transcribed interview. I can only assume that the reason the majority has not asked GARM, the main target of this investigation, to send a witness here today is that the majority knows there is no evidence to support their claim of wrongdoing. Their investigation was not designed to uncover unlawful behavior because they knew there was none. Instead, it was designed to chill companies' exercise of their First Amendment rights. It was designed to make companies afraid to speak to each other about the real connection between the online monetization of criminal and harmful content and the funding of offline harm. Make no mistake, the companies represented here today and the others that are part of GARM want, first and foremost, for customers to see their ads where and when they expect them and to make purchases based on those ads. But secondly and importantly, they do not want their expensive ad campaigns to fund people, one, who pirate content, two, who promote and execute terrorist acts, three, who make and distribute harmful and exploitative images of children.
Fund people who pirate content. What?
And execute terrorist acts. 3, who make and distribute harmful and exploitive images of children, and 4, others who use the internet to distribute and fund crime. Republicans are so determined to prove their conspiracy theory that conservative content is being censored that they will do anything, including launching a fruitless and harmful investigation to bully companies that do not hold their views. I hope that we will get back to doing the serious work of the American people very soon and not continue to waste taxpayer dollars on fishing expeditions designed to help hate and criminal activity spread on and offline. I thank the witnesses for appearing today, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlemen, yields back without objection. All of their opening statements will be included in the record. We now introduce today's witnesses. Mr. Christian Jewell is the global CEO of Group M, one of the world's largest media buying agencies with more than $60 billion in annual media spending. Group M's agencies and subdivisions include Mindshare, Wavemaker, Essence, Mediacom, TNPM, and others. Mr. Harish Patel is the president of Unilever USA and CEO of Unilever's Personal Care North America division. As CEO of Personal Care North America, Mr. Patel oversees brands including Dove, Degree, and Axe, among others. Mr. Benjamin...
Yeah, if nothing else, the argument that he just made is that, well, these advertisers don't want to have... these advertisers want to be able to dictate what the money that they pay for the advertising goes towards supporting. If you're paying a company for providing ad space, what the company then does and who they pay that money to is none of your goddamn business. Now, I'm going to skip over this dipshit because I don't really care what 3M whatever group has to say about it because they're, you know, I mean, I can come back to it at another point, but I'm more interested in, apparently there was something about Shapiro and, there was something else. Oh, there's Shapiro.
Mr. Patel, Mr. Shapiro, you're recognized for 5 minutes. Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Nadler, members of the committee, good morning.
I can't hear you.
Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Nadler, members of the committee, good morning. First of all, Ranking Member Nadler, I appreciate the kind words about our business. It's very kind of you. And also, I assume that we'd be doing a lot better without the institutional obstacles that I'm about to discuss. We're in the midst of a trust crisis in the world of media, which is because so many in the legacy media have lied in order to preserve left-leaning narratives. To take just the most recent example, we were told by the legacy media that President Biden was just fine. For years, anyone who questioned his health and mental fitness was trafficking in cheap fakes. And then President Biden went out and engaged in a full-scale mental collapse on stage in front of hundreds of millions of people. So we can see why Americans, at least Americans who are not Democrats, do not trust the media. The question isn't really why the legacy media have lost Americans' trust. We know that answer. The question is why, despite that loss of trust, the legacy media continue to gain share in the advertising market. And the
If I stop being able to follow what he's saying, or if chat tells me to, I'll slow him down, but...
answer is simple. There is, in fact, an informal pressure system created by Democratic legislators, this White House, legacy media, advertisers, and pseudo-objective brand safety organizations. That system guarantees that advertising dollars flow only to left-wing media brands. Let me explain how this works. When a conservative competitor to the legacy media arises, members of that legacy media and their political allies rush to paint such competitors as dangerous. The commentator Kara Swisher of the New York Times, for example, told the head of YouTube that my videos at Daily Wire were a, quote, gateway drug that would lead children, including her own teenage son, to watch neo-Nazi content. Never mind the yarmulke. Elected Democrats pick up that same messaging. In 2017, Senator Dianne Feinstein told lawyers at Facebook, Google, and Twitter, quote, you created these platforms and now they're being misused, and you have to be the ones to do something about it, or we will. Social media companies react to incentive structures, including threats. They've responded by adopting the standards of third-party left-wing informational safety groups like the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, or GARM. GARM purportedly sets brand safety standards, objective standards by which advertisers and platforms can supposedly determine just what sort of content ought to be deemed safe for advertising. In reality, GARM acts as a cartel. Its members account for 90% of ad spending in the United States, almost $1 trillion. In other words, if you're not getting ad dollars from GARM members, it's nearly impossible to run an ad-based business. And if you're not following their preferred political narratives, the ones that Kara Swisher and Dianne Feinstein would follow, you will not be deemed brand safe. Your business will be throttled. We at Daily Wire have experienced this firsthand. In 2017, after Senator Feinstein made her threats to bring the weight of government down on social media platforms, Daily Wire YouTube channel saw a 1,000% increase in content enforcements over a 2-year period. Since 2021, after Democrat officials further turned up the heat on social media companies, my personal Facebook page has seen an over 80% drop in impressions. Or take Joe Rogan. When Joe said that he had taken ivermectin after getting COVID, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki pressured Spotify to take action, stating, quote, we want every platform to be doing more to call out mis- and disinformation while also uplifting accurate information. Spotify complied. Spotify, of course, works with GARM. So, what are the brand safety standards that GARM uses? The standards begin with inarguable things that we've heard from the other witnesses, like preventing distribution of child sexual abuse material or stopping terrorism. But GARM doesn't draw the line at what is criminal, abusive, or dangerous. Their standards also include restrictions on hate speech, harassment, misinformation, or my personal favorite, insensitive, irresponsible, and harmful treatment of debated, sensitive social issues.
Those criteria are highly subjective in theory, and they are purely partisan in practice. For example,
Holy shit,
last year...
that's the actual wording under GARM for what they can continue to... Whoa!
Where host Matt Walsh was fully demonetized on YouTube, a GARM member. Why? For quote-unquote misgendering, which to GARM is to say that men are not women. Perfectly obvious facts now run afoul of GARM's censorship standards. Companies targeted by GARM, like the Daily Wire, Breitbart, Fox News, and so many others, reach hundreds of millions of people with opinions and beliefs long established as within the mainstream of American conservative thought. GARM and its members have no respect for the beliefs of those people. They would like them marginalized or squashed. It's time to stand up for the First Amendment in this Congress. Congress can do so in two ways. First, Congress must investigate the informal and perhaps formal arrangements between censorship cartels like GARM and executive branch agencies. The Daily Wire has already filed a federal lawsuit against the State Department for allegedly doing just this. Second, Congress can itself stop engaging in violation of free speech principles. 2 weeks ago, writing in dissent in Murphy versus Missouri, Justice Alito condemned what he called sophisticated and coercive government campaigns against free speech. Members of this committee have engaged in precisely such campaigns. When Congressman Schiff speaks about targeting social media companies that must be, quote, pulled and dragged into this era of corporate responsibility because they are too tolerant of misinformation, he knows what he is doing. He is participating in a sophisticated, coercive campaign against free speech. When Congresswoman Jayapal blames social media for placing America at the, quote, precipice of a democratic crisis and calls on them to target they deem hate groups, she also knows what she is doing. She is participating in a sophisticated, coercive campaign against free speech. When Congressman Hank Johnson says, quote, we need a constitutional amendment to allow the legislature to control the so-called free speech rights of corporations, he also knows what he is doing. We all know what these government actors, what some people in this room are doing. You're using the tacit threat of government action to compel private companies to throttle viewpoints you don't particularly like. The First Amendment was not designed to enable workarounds by elected official. It was directed at Congress, at you, and you're abdicating your fundamental duty when you exert pressure on private companies to censor speech. Some in this room have been doing just that for years. We in the non-legacy media have been feeling the effects. In the name of the Constitution and in the name of democracy, this should stop.
Thank you, Mr. Shapiro. We now recognize Professor Waller.
Thank you. Chair Jordan, Ranking Member Nadler, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present my views to you today. I am speaking solely in my
Holy
personal
shit, it's the
capacity.
accountant from Jurassic Park that gets eaten on the shitter. I thought he was dead.
I do not represent GARM or any of its member firms. I am concerned that the antitrust issues relating to today's hearings and the letters and document requests sent to the various companies do not conform to a consensus understanding of U.S. antitrust law by most courts and commentators. I only have access to publicly available information, so I cannot opine on whether there is or is not any specific antitrust violation. Instead, I present a roadmap of the many antitrust issues that would need to be addressed in a serious way before any real antitrust concerns exist in this matter. It's important to note that most members of GARM do not compete with each other, and each has unique needs for marketing and branding, including...
I'm sorry, what? What? It's like 90% of the marketing agencies across the world, and you're saying that most of them don't compete with each other? Yeah, sure, because they're all in different industries, but... What? They still all have the same... I think I'm gonna have a stroke.
As the other witnesses have already testified, having effective marketing campaigns and doing their best to avoid any harmful associations that damage their brand or simply drive away purchasers. With respect to the diverse coalition of firms in GARM, for example, Microsoft does not compete with McDonald's, Procter & Gamble or Unilever don't compete with Shell, a pharmaceutical company, or Group M. And also, these firms do not generally compete with content providers such as...
Which makes it all the worse if they come together to collude to take away from a single company. You're not helping the case here.
As Mr. Shapiro. Now, the activities of GARM do not appear from publicly available information to be a cartel as that term is understood in antitrust law. And cartels are a serious concern of antitrust laws, but they normally involve an agreement between competitors to fix prices, rig bids, limit production, divide markets, or otherwise interfere with quality, production, and innovation. And instead, what we're talking about is the development of terms and definitions. They call it a lexicon. It is in some ways sort of like a dictionary. These terms do not affect the price, production, or quality of the goods and services sold by the members of GARM. Advertisers, media buyers, advertising agencies may or may not rely on the GARM terminology and may adopt any other criteria to determine how and where to place advertising. This is done in a public process. Everything is published and available to you. And this is very different from the secretive processes by which traditional cartels meet to create and enforce their unlawful agreements. In addition, there are, on its face, legitimate business justifications that the firms would be asserting.
Okay, fine. Maybe like as soon as he started saying that, I was like, yeah, okay, fine. Maybe there's some issues about whether or not it's in violation of antitrust. Okay. Doesn't mean that it's not racketeering and organized activity against an individual. Against an individual company. Or, you know, conspiracy to commit tortious interference on a wide scale. Like,
including protecting brand images and successful marketing strategies. These are two types of business justifications that are routinely considered in antitrust cases. And characterizing GARM's conduct as a boycott doesn't really change the antitrust analysis in any important way. Group boycotts are only per se unlawful when they're used to implement some otherwise unlawful cartel agreement, or where firms with market power collectively deny a competitor access to some key source of supply it needs to survive. Separate from the traditional antitrust analysis that I've outlined in my opening statement and in my remarks and in my witness statement, the First Amendment and the interests of free expression also limit the application of antitrust laws in important ways. The Norr-Pennington Doctrine immunizes conduct that seeks to influence government action and public policy through a variety of techniques, including publicity campaigns. In short, an agreement by firms, if there is an agreement, is not an antitrust violation if it's designed to influence governmental action at any level of the government: federal, state, local, legislative, judicial, or executive branch. In addition, the Supreme Court and the lower courts have shown a separate and special caution for applying the antitrust laws to impose liability for political and social boycotts, even if that's what's going on, even if there is a degree of economic self-interest by the groups conducting the boycott. One example is that the Supreme Court has held that the First Amendment protects the civil rights boycott of white merchants in Mississippi by the NAACP, even though some other businesses may well have prospered or done more business because of that boycott. The committee's expressed concerns over the conduct examined today are not consistent with the consensus view of the antitrust law set forth in the leading cases. I agree with the chair that an individual decision to do business or not to do business is not covered by Section 1 of the Sherman Act. However, in addition to the lack of the other issues and evidence from the public available information, there are significant First Amendment implications raised by the actions of GARM. And these First Amendment issues suggest that even if the antitrust laws were fully justified and every issue in the antitrust roadmap were satisfied, there would be a plausible argument that the conduct was protected as a matter of speech and free implication. And I'm running out of time, but I also want to suggest that the policy implications of imposing antitrust liability in these circumstances should be quite concerning, regardless of one's political views. A leading treatise published by the ABA antitrust section states, boycotts are a common instrument for bringing about social change or advancing political, religious, or other non-commercial goals. And using the antitrust laws to challenge expressive conduct can interfere with commonplace forms of advocacy that are used by consumers, religious groups, political groups of all policy and persuasions. As a result, I do not see any benefit from further legislative action on these issues.
Thank you, Professor. We will now proceed under the 5-minute rule with questions. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find myself a bit conflicted. I agree with both Mr. Waller and Mr. Shapiro on matters that they've mentioned. I mean, first of all, no matter how much gaslighting we've heard this morning, it's clear to me from the internal communications in the committee's report that GARM's objectives are clearly political, to use its influence among its members to suppress free speech and to financially harm outlets in which the leadership disagrees. I don't see any other reading of those communications that reaches any other conclusion. It's a manifestation of the ESG movement that has financially harmed so many companies that practice it. And there's a huge economic price to be paid for this conduct. Go woke, go broke is more than just a slogan. It's an economic fact. I mean, ask Disney, ask Budweiser. They pay the companies, I think, in GARM's case, are risking missing huge swaths of the market that they're seeking to reach. They pay a premium for ads in the forums they deliberately saturated. They miss bargains in the forums that they are, I'll use their word, throttling. And they risk alienating the consumers upon whom they rely for profits. I mean, I was a devoted, lifelong Gillette consumer until they launched their Men Are Pigs campaign in 2017. I haven't bought a Gillette product since. But that's their right as a company to alienate me as a consumer, and it's my right as a consumer to be alienated. Now, if I were a stockholder in GARM's member companies, I would be absolutely livid. I'd either be raising hell at stockholder meetings or withdrawing my investments or both. If I were a manager in any of these companies, I'd be livid also, and I'd be canceling my membership in GARM with a strong letter to follow. But here's the fine point of the matter. That's a beef between the company's stockholders and their management. It's a beef between GARM's member companies and GARM. It's a beef between those companies and their consumers. But it is not a beef between GARM or its member companies or their stockholders and consumers and this government. People have a right to their opinions and to express those opinions in any peaceful manner that they choose. Companies are simply a collection of people gathered together to pool their resources toward a common goal, whether it's to make money or advance a political cause or both. It's a little amusing to see that the Democrats suddenly championing this freedom because, in GARM's case, it benefits them, but rail against the very same freedom when it comes to such matters as Citizens United. For the left, their ethics are strictly situational, and as I've often warned on this committee, we can never allow them to become our teachers. Democracy extends beyond the political realm to the free market as well. In a free market, consumers vote every day with every dollar they spend on what the market will produce, who best produces it, what they're willing to pay, and who they'll buy it from. A free government exists to protect this right, and that's why I think we should be careful when we tread into this matter in the application of government power in disputes that are strictly between private parties. But I do think Mr. Shapiro is absolutely correct that if this government is in any way acting to pressure or nudge companies to censor speech or to corrupt their business decisions for political ends, we ought to vigorously act to stop that. But if they're just doing that to themselves, that's their right to make stupid decisions, and government also exists to protect that right. Mr. Shapiro, I'll give you the last word.
I mean, I agree with much of what you're saying. I think that the big concern for the Daily Wire and companies like ours is the nexus between government action and groups like GARM. And it appears clear to us that a well-meaning organization that simply wanted to appeal to the broadest possible audience would not be making political decisions about which outlets are too right or which outlets are too left. I'm perfectly fine with advertisers advertising on Pod Save America or on MSNBC. The problem that we have is an informal structure by which members of government, including this White House, have pressured social media companies in order to restrict their content. And everyone can see that. There's a lot of, will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest going on from...
You know what? Yes, and peeps, just so you're aware, I'm making this a blanket rule. If there is something that is on YouTube's list that is something that will immediately get me demonetized, mods do have permission to remove it, okay? But at least try and let the person know after the fact as to why it was removed, so that people know that it is not something... Not that we're trying to curtail their speech, I'm just trying to keep myself in the money, okay? Okay.
Members of the government who then seem to be shocked when there's pushback from the right on exactly the same sort of matter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The ranking members recognized for 5 minutes.
Apparently it's just been updated, so I will let you know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Patel, has the Global Alliance for Responsible Media ever required that your company, Unilever, avoid advertising on any platform or website?
No, sir.
Mr. Jewell, same question. Has the Global Alliance for Responsible Media ever required Group M to avoid advertising on any platform or website?
No, sir.
Mr. Jewell.
Really?
Has your company's participation
thank you
in
for
the Global
coming back,
Alliance for Responsible Media ever restricted your company's advertising decisions in any way?
No, it's completely optional.
Excuse me?
GARM is completely optional.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Same question to you.
But allegedly it's not. You're saying that it's completely optional, but it's in the sign-up terms to being part of GARM that you will enforce the standards on others. It's not that it's optional.
You.
Yeah, it's completely voluntary.
Professor Waller, one of the goals of the Global Alliance for Responsible Media is to avoid having companies' advertising dollars funding online and offline harm, like the creation and dissemination of commercially exploitative and explicit images of children, or the funding of terrorism groups, or the promotion and dissemination of explicit images and depictions of crime outside of news stories and reporting. Is there any U.S. law that requires companies to advertise on every website and every platform?
No, there's not. A company can individually choose to do business or not do business with an advertiser, advertising agency, or platform.
Is there any law that requires companies to support, through advertising dollars, speech, content, or statements that they don't believe in?
What the hell kind of question is that? That is not the reason that they're there. That is not the allegation that's being made. As we've said, at every instance, each individual company is free to make and choose and decide what they spend their advertising dollars on. What they're not allowed to do is collude with 140 other companies to maximize and use market share power to effectively abuse another company and extort them. Disingenuous prick, in my opinion.
There's no antitrust law that deals with that.
What would be the consequences if there were?
I can say that the Supreme Court has, expressed concern and not imposed liability. They typically don't force companies to do business with each other if they don't wish to. They're frankly more concerned about cartel agreements and the other thing rather than forcing companies to continue to do business if they don't wish. They wish to encourage unilateral decisions about how to proceed in the real world as each company thinks best.
And that's what the Supreme Court has said?
Yes.
And what do you think about the, getting the Supreme Court for the moment, what do you think about the effects of such a law?
We want companies, the antitrust laws really do a couple of things. They prevent agreements that unreasonably harm competition. They prevent single firms from abusing their power, and they prevent mergers and acquisitions that can lead to either of those other problems I've already outlined. That's what the antitrust laws do. They don't generally micromanage the decisions of corporations as they decide what's best for them in the market.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I must note once again that this sham investigation has revealed that these companies have broken no competition law. The investigation never should have started, but it certainly should have ended after the committee spoke to a representative of GARM and learned exactly what we all should know by now, that there is no basis for a claim of antitrust harm. But that does not mean that this investigation is harmless. The committee's power has been used to bully, intimidate, and impoverish any organization or company that dares to disagree with so-called conservative speech, in quotes. Speech that in many cases causes and spreads harm both online and offline. And I believe that that is exactly the purpose of this investigation, to misuse the power of this committee to bully, intimidate, and impoverish any organization or company that dares to disagree with so-called conservative speech. In other words, to intimidate the exercise of free speech, to impoverish organizations, to improperly use the power of this committee to force organizations to spend themselves into poverty and thereby to inhibit and deter exercise of free speech. This is a gross misuse of the power of this committee. We have an opportunity, Mr. Chairman, to have a constructive conversation about antitrust law and how we can help the American people. But unfortunately, this hearing is not it. This hearing is an exercise in intimidation of free speech, and it's shameful. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Arizona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the witnesses for appearing here today. Mr. Jewell and Mr. Patel, your companies and your clients, you as an individual company, are both sit on the steering committee for GARM. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And with the steering committee...
just for Swan Lake Lady and anyone else that's coming in, Elon sued GARM, the Global Association for Responsible Marketing, or something along those lines, as well as a bunch of other companies that boycotted him as a result of, well, boycotted X as a result of, allegedly GARM, this association, organized the boycott, so misuse of market power, whatever the hell else you want to call it, and this is the Judiciary Committee looking into it and basically determining that what they did was kind of illegal, you know? Because you're not supposed to use market power and market share of a bunch of people that say what you want. They're competing for advertising space. I'm sorry, but whether you are working in the same area, if you are going to be using a single platform for advertising, you may not be competing in the product that you sell, but you are supposed to be competing with other individual companies for the ad space. As far as I'm concerned, they're still all competitors. But pretty much we're looking at what they had to say in front of the committee. I wasn't intending to watch the entire 3 hours of it. I wanted to hear what Shapiro and a few other people had to say, but at the moment I'm just looking at some extra stuff, so I'm just letting it run for the moment.
There's been a number of standards that have been developed by GARM, and Mr. Patel, you mentioned your company, Unilever, has developed its own set of standards. Have you adopted the standards of GARM as part of your standards as well in advertisement placement?
Well, firstly, Unilever created its own standards in 2018, and then there was an industry need to create some standardization, which is what GARM was born for in 2019.
My question was, though...
That doesn't answer the question.
Did your company adopt those GARM standards from 2019?
we adopt the GARM standards.
Okay. And Mr. Jewell, how many of your clients have adopted the GARM standards?
GARM exists to create the framework and the definitions that we've used.
So this is, we get that. I've read your statement. How many of your companies, how many companies do you represent?
We represent thousands.
And how many of those companies have accepted and adopted the GARM standards?
I couldn't give you an exact number, but I would tell you most of our major advertisers use GARM as a foundation, and then we build upon that for whatever their custom preferences are for whatever their particular suitability might be.
So they agree to be bound by the GARM standards
As
initially.
part of the steering committee, do you have regular discussions with GARM and its leadership, of which you're a part, regarding placement of advertisements?
GARM!
I do not meet
Standards.
with them. I do not meet with GARM on a regular basis. I've actually never met with them.
Aren't you on the steering committee?
The company would, yes.
Okay, Mr. Patel.
The company would meet, but we 100% decide where our marketing investment goes. That's Unilever's decision.
So Mr. Rakowitz, who works for GARM, he's kind of the face of GARM in some respects. Have either of you or your company dealt with Mr. Rakowitz in communicating about advertisement placement and subject matter?
I haven't met Mr. Reckerswood, but we have a member that sits on the steercom.
Yes. Okay. So let's get to that for a second. In 2020, Rob Master, Vice President of Media and Digital Engagement at Unilever, sent an email to Facebook about a presidential ad, and he was concerned about it violating the Facebook policies. Are you familiar with that situation, Mr. Patel?
I wasn't part of the communication, but I have seen the communication that you're referring to, and I think what I interpret from it, he was checking what was Facebook's policy on it.
I find it interesting that the way you couched that, you were checking what Facebook's policy was. Weren't you really, your staff, really checking to see if it was consistent with your own policy, I would assume, right?
No, sir, we don't decide on what media content goes up or goes down. That's up for the media platforms to decide.
But when you're looking for ad safety placement, you're not concerned then whether that was consistent with Facebook's policy? You're just basically inquiring with Facebook's policy, not concerned with your own policy of placement?
What we do is we decide all our marketing investment. We'll decide on target audiences where we want our brands to appear.
So why were you inquiring whether that was a violation of Facebook's policy?
So I'm not clear on why Rob Masters sent that communication, but as I said, we decide where we want to put our ads with whichever social media.
Of course, I appreciate that you decide where you place your ads. The question, though,
why
is
was the question asked?
Why are you then going to Facebook and saying, does this ad meet your criterion? Because that indicates you're trying to influence Facebook, because in reality, your position is, we're going to place it wherever we think is best. But there's an ad over here, a specific ad, that you're asking, does that meet your policy? That seems to intimidate. That seems to imply that you want to question their policy, what their platform is doing before you bother to place your ad. But you didn't do it that way. You just wanted to know whether it met their policy. You didn't say, we're not going to do it because we don't like it. That indicates you're interfering in YouTube's policy decision. Yield.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from Washington is recognized.
Well, I really like my colleague on the other side, but I did not understand that argument. Antitrust enforcement is experiencing a real renaissance under the Biden administration. Our antitrust enforcers have won victories in court against employers that sought to suppress worker pay.
When did Barbie wound up on the House Judiciary Committee? What the hell is that?
Antitrust enforcers have won victories in court against employers that sought to suppress worker pay, successfully fought to lower the price of inhalers, and are working to lower food prices by targeting anti-competitive practices in the grocery industry. The list of antitrust accomplishments under this administration is unprecedented, and the American people have noticed. It is unfortunate that this majority has not moved forward with the bipartisan package of antitrust bills that we passed under Democrats in the 117th Congress that would have protected small businesses and consumers across the country as they were demanding to be able to have more competition, to be able to lower their prices, and to protect their ability as small businesses to compete. If we are concerned about the trustworthiness of media, and we want to foster more responsible media, then I would suggest we take up my bipartisan Journalism Competition and Preservation Act. Let's debate that. Let's make sure independent publishers across the country, newspapers and small communities across the country can survive. But that's not what's happening. We've begun to see some colleagues on the other side co-opt the language of antitrust enforcement to target behaviors that have nothing to do with antitrust. I know that the details of antitrust law are confusing, so I want to clarify a few specific legal points in plain English. Professor Waller, as an expert on antitrust law, and in plain English, can you explain what kinds of anti-competitive behavior our antitrust laws are designed to prevent?
Sure. And as a teacher, I try to explain complex things in plain language, so I appreciate your approach. I can give examples just in the real world. Over the years, the Justice Department has brought criminal antitrust cases against global cartels that have raised the price of vitamins, food additives, and smaller cases, road building, and other expenses that taxpayers bear. This has been a traditional priority of antitrust enforcement. As you know, both the FTC and the Department of Justice have major Section 2 cases going on, both in the tech sector and otherwise, going after powerful firms that they're alleging have violated the antitrust laws, abusing monopoly power by a single firm, whether it's Amazon, Live Nation, Google, et cetera. They're in various stages. And there are pending mergers cases, such as the supermarket merger that's being now litigated by the FTC in 30-some states, where the consequences are likely, if the government's right, higher food prices as well as harm to labor if that merger goes through as currently proposed. Those are some of the priorities.
Perfect. And actually that Kroger's-Albertson merger, there was an article on the front page of the Seattle Times today. Over 150 stores will close in my area, just in Seattle, as a result of that merger. Now, you touched on this in your prepared statement, and I know you only have access to public information about the facts in this case, but given those constraints, do you see any of these antitrust elements in the information that was uncovered by my Republican colleagues?
Based on what I've seen, I do not at this stage, and based on publicly available information, GARM appears to be very different from either a trade association or even a traditional standard-setting body. They do not appear to be creating binding industry standards that determine whether products and services can be sold. They are creating sets of terms that firms can use or not use to make.
That's a crock of shit. Because just because you say something is not binding and something is supposed to be optional, if it in effect and in practice is mandated,
decisions that they each do in the marketplace.
So another fruitless investigation in this Congress. I would also add that Project 2025, the radical right-wing plan for a second Trump administration, calls for more of these ideologically driven attacks on private actors in its section on the FTC, cloaking these culture war attacks in the popular rhetoric of antitrust and market power. On a different note, Mr. Patel, and quickly, how do you think consumers might view your products if they were advertised alongside hateful, vile, or dangerous content like anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, child sexual abuse material, or content promoting terrorism?
It would create severe damage to the brand equity that we built for decades and decades.
Thank you. In fact, one of our witnesses has repeatedly made hateful and derogatory comments about LGBTQ plus people in the past. Mr. Shapiro has argued that transgender and gay Americans suffer from a, quote, psychological disorder or mental illness.
That is fucking irrelevant to the reason why you were sitting in front of this committee. You are there to determine whether or not a group of companies got together to bully another company by making sure that no one received funding. Got our talking points perfectly memorized. Mm-hmm.
And has denigrated same-sex couples, raising 2023 million interactions.
Mr. Patel, are you part of an organization that uses market power?
I yield back.
Mr. Patel, are you part of an organization that uses market power for censorship?
No, sir.
And how much advertising capital do you deploy annually?
How much marketing investment do we spend?
Yeah.
850 million a year.
And you said less than 1% of that in the news area, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's because, really, your brands don't want to be involved in these caustic news disputes or political disputes. They want to be apolitical in the presentation of their brand. Is my understanding that testimony correctly?
So we serve 90% of American households with our portfolio.
It's a fascinating answer, just not to my question. Is the reason you de-emphasize news because you want to be apolitical?
We target our investment to address the consumers that buy our brands.
Okay, are you doing so for political reasons or apolitical reasons?
We don't do it for any political reason.
Okay, so then why are the vice presidents of your company trying to shape the way Facebook limits view of a Trump advertisement?
So I'm not sure what the intention of that communication was, but that's
I do. It was to get the Trump ad taken down. It's pretty clear. You had two vice presidents, Rob Master and Luis DeComo, who were pressuring Facebook to utilize Facebook's policies to take down a Trump ad. So it's just hard to believe that your goal is to avoid politics when not some intern at your company, but the vice presidents at Unilever are writing Facebook saying, we want you to take this Trump ad down and apply these policies to do it.
So I'm not sure what the intention of communication was, but
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll read you the
It's
communication.
irrelevant what
It's
you
two
think
words.
the intention was.
It's your vice president to GARM when they were trying to get the Facebook ad taken out. It said, honestly reprehensible. So you're using this $800 million plus power that you have over the marketplace. Facebook is craving your advertising dollars, and you have two vice presidents hammering Facebook to take down a Trump ad about whether or not Joe Biden should have his ear inspected for an earpiece. That was what the ad was about, that you all found so reprehensible.
So respectfully, I'm not sure that word was done by a Unilever person.
You're okay. So
There's a
Mr.
copy of the
DeComo
email
didn't
in
work
his
for
hand,
Unilever?
dipshit.
He sits on the. If I did my homework right, I think that came from the GARM, Rob.
Oh, Rob Rankowitz, yes. But you are member entities to GARM. You pay GARM. You guys are GARM. I mean, as Mr. Jewell said, you have to have tools in order to help you place your ads. So you go fund GARM, and then here your vice presidents are commiserating with GARM over the fact that Facebook won't remove this. I guess, Mr. Shapiro, when we look at these big advertising platforms and they're hearing the people with the advertising dollars hammer them with this ideological tilt, what does that do to the marketplace for ideas?
Obviously, it shuts down the marketplace of ideas, which is largely the intent. And one of the things that I've heard from some of the Democratic members of the committee today is an extraordinary amount of projection wherein they suggest that Republican members of the committee are trying to shut down free speech by trying to get answers to questions about the kind of political pressures that are being put on social media companies, for example. But it's been Democrats who, for years, have been spending their time trying to pressure social media companies into doing their bidding by limiting the types of information that are available to the public and how that information is actually distributed. One of the things that's worth noting here is that it's not just a matter of advertising dollars flowing. The way that it works on social media is that if you are demonetized, then the reach of your actual content is also limited by the same social media companies.
Do you think the frequency of those demonetization rises when you have vice presidents of companies at Unilever trying to hammer entities like Facebook into taking down Trump ads?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question that when you have internal pressures put on social media companies to take down right-wing material, that has an impact on the reach of right-wing messaging. There's just no question.
And I guess I don't mind when Democrats say they don't like conservative speech, or we get to say we don't like some of their speech. That's how this works. But it's when the business community colludes and utilizes market power to shape the way social media companies or websites disseminate information that the public doesn't even get to see that debate and engage it. And I think the fact that it's clandestine is actually even more corrosive to the values that undergird.
That's absolutely true. The complete lack of transparency with which GARM treats both the member companies as well as the consuming public is one of the major problems. If they simply wish to levy a boycott against a right-wing source, they should simply say that's what they're doing. Hiding behind fake standards in order to project objectivity is a major problem in transparency for the market.
Mr. Cohen's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, thank you, Mr. Chair. This
To be
issue
honest,
was
Rich, I
already
dare
raised,
say
as
that
I
the
understand
average
it,
person
addressed
isn't
in
watching my
transcribed
channel
interview with
anyway.
a representative of GARM, as that witness stated, and as I'm sure the representatives from Group M and Unilever
I cover some bullshit.
likewise note,
so.
they're not responsible for creating or implementing Facebook's ad policies. That's something Facebook does. They are, as advertisers, though, rightly
Holy!
concerned about the uniform enforcement of those policies. As the witness stated, quote, you can't imagine a global marketer. If they are trying to run a campaign across platforms or across markets, and if they start hitting those inconsistencies where there are actions taken against advertising messages and campaigns that are not clear, they are not transparent. It creates disruption because it's like all of a sudden I now actually have an outage in my campaign and I'm not going to be able to reach as many consumers. I'm not going to get business results. The company is not going to perform. Stock market prices, it's all there. Basically, supply and demand is all very American. It's what we're all about, capitalism.
I can't unsee it. Am I the only one?
Is that, Mr. Patel, is that pretty much correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I would appreciate the app was not taken down. The ad was not taken down, was it?
Not to my understanding.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. I was in transportation working on some issues there and came here to what I think is a rather bizarre hearing. Not the first we've had in this committee. It's our second hearing ostensibly charging specific groups with illegal conduct without a single expert witness to lay out that conduct and how that conduct violates the law. This is the Judiciary Committee. We're supposed to be looking about law, violation of law, legal experts. Nada. We did have 2 oversight hearings of the antitrust enforcement agencies, the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice. We had 2 top enforcement officials here. Not once did any
All
member
right,
bring
Bruce,
up Global Alliance for Responsible Media, Group M, Unilever, or any of this. So when Republicans had the opportunity to ask antitrust experts, they didn't. Today we have 2 witnesses, a large advertiser and a large advertising buyer, who are testifying why the Republicans just have it factually wrong. And we have a talk show host who is bitter that corporations do not want to buy his program. It's a good thing we have an esteemed antitrust expert with us today, Professor Waller. He diligently and politely explained why this legal theory that there is some antitrust violation designed to censor conservatives is bunk. So that is the evidence we have before us. Thank you, Mr. Waller. The legal theory is bunk. Clean that up a bit. The Republicans have it backwards. Their cry against censorship is nothing more than an attempt to bully, or as they would like it, compel by law, companies to associate themselves with individuals and content creators that companies believe are harmful and pay them. Seriously, you think Unilever should be forced to advertise and in doing so financially support posts about rape or domestic violence? That's not the American way. We let the private enterprise capitalistic system determine where they want to advertise. And that is the record that's coming out in this hearing, is that they want to force Unilever to do certain things. This is a real concern. We have images that...
What a ridiculous argument. That's not even what's being argued. No one's forcing them to do it. They're saying that organizing a boycott amongst 140 separate companies is illegal. How do you get a PetSmart cup? I assume they use it to give animals some sort of medication, maybe? Give a dog a cup of water after they have a pill or something? I don't know. I mean, it looks like is it a paper cup or is it porcelain? It looks like it's porcelain.
That show how a company has legitimate business interests, and I would argue a social obligation not to support this type of harmful conduct and then be associated with it. It also gets free speech wrong, as Professor Waller explained. This isn't about government censoring anyone. In fact, it's about trying to use the antitrust laws and enforcements to compel speech. The Republicans must read the Constitution in a funhouse mirror. It's very much out of focus and weird shapes, and they pick out what they want, and then they come out of the funhouse and maybe they wake up. With that, I have a couple of questions. And I haven't read Project 2025, so that could all be in Project 2025 when they want to turn America over. This may be part of it. Mr. Patel, Mr. Shapiro, or is it Shapiro?
It's Shapiro.
Shapiro, thank you. I had an uncle, he was Shapiro, and then his son became Shapiro. Mr. Shapiro says the Democrats are using the tacit threat of government action to compel private companies to throttle viewpoints that we don't like. Do you know what chutzpah is?
Sorry, sir?
You know what chutzpah is?
No, sir.
Well, that's chutzpah. We're literally in a hearing where the Republicans are using the power of this committee, not tacitly threaten, but actually accuse.
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
Companies of illegal activity and investigate them because they don't like their viewpoint. A very sensible viewpoint, I would argue, that they don't want to be associated with hate speech or domestic violence or rape or harassment. You wouldn't want to be associated with anything to deal with. Somebody went into Bergdorf Goodman,
and no one's
got a
trying to
woman and
force
took her
them
into
to
a
do
locked dressing
so.
room and molested her. No, you wouldn't want to do that, and you wouldn't want to be. And I can go on and on and on about that deal. So I'll yield right now and the balance of my time. And thank you, sir.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Democrats must have been given their talking points on Project 2025 yesterday at the internal meeting of the conference to determine who the next presidential candidate will be for the Democrat Party. This is the second committee I've sat through this morning, including financial services, and Project 2025 has come up at least a dozen times. I just find that interesting. Mr. Patel, Unilever is a publicly traded company, meaning you have fiduciary duty to deliver returns to shareholders, correct?
Yes, sir.
In your 2023 annual report, you identify consumer preferences as a principal risk to your business. In examining this risk, you stated our success depends on value and relevance of our brands and products to consumers around the world. Would you agree that it's got to be a critical element in managing that risk because you have to continue to grow consumer preference of your brands, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. And you do that through brand and marketing investments or advertisements, I guess is another way of describing that, right?
That's how we build brands.
But between 2021 and 2023, Unilever spent more than $23 billion on brand and marketing investments. That's a fairly big chunk of your operating costs, I'm sure. Would it be fair to say that Unilever believes brand marketing delivers a positive return on investment?
So that's why we invest to build our brands and the equity, and that's why we're in 90% of US households.
Right, but if consumer preference is still at risk, you could always do better, correct? I mean, that's obviously the goal.
The business could always grow better.
Right. So let me ask you this. If consumer preference is vital to the success of your company, you acknowledge that a principal risk and commit billions of dollars each year to mitigating that risk, then why would you boycott companies that reach millions of consumers? It doesn't make any sense. You've got this goal in place, you're pursuing it, but yet you're still pursuing boycotts.
So we don't boycott. We have a clear internal process. Our brands have jobs to be done. We have target audiences that we look for our brands. Actually, 80% of our marketing spend goes between 18 and 49-year-old women because they make 80% of the purchasing decisions for our business. And that's how
Unilever.
we set our choices on investment. What's right for our brands to give us the best business return on investment.
What about Twitter? Has there been any boycotting of Twitter? It would be in the best interest of growing your consumer preference and delivering returns to shareholders. They have to utilize Twitter to make sure that your brands are continuing to grow, right?
So on Twitter, or X as it's known now, there was a period in 2019, 2020, due to brand safety, that we pulled our investment, but we have now returned to Twitter across the world.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shapiro, can you explain the importance, I don't want to oversimplify this, can you explain the importance of advertising dollars to growing Daily Wire into the company that it is today?
Sure. So the truth is that advertising dollars represent a far smaller share of the revenue of the Daily Wire than they did at the very beginning. When you're first starting a company, the possibility of starting it off the basis of subscribers alone is very difficult because you actually don't have tremendous market reach. The gradual increase in revenue is largely due to advertiser revenue. So at the beginning of the Daily Wire, nearly 100% of all revenue that we had when we were building the business was based on advertising revenue. Today, it's significantly smaller than that because we have a very large subscriber base. So the principal threat that I'm here to talk about is not about the bitterness of my company, which continues to be, thank God, highly successful. The reason that I'm here is to talk about startup companies that are attempting to get into the market and are being barred from an extraordinarily large pool of advertising revenue along political lines.
Do you believe there is collective boycotts that are happening?
There's no question there are collective boycotts happening, and I will say that I do appreciate the chutzpah of some of the Democratic members of Congress, and I'm charmed by their newfound love for free markets and corporate free speech. That one seems to be a bit of a new one to me, but it is charming only in that it requires you to ignore many of the statements that they have made historically about the amount of pressure they would love to bring on private companies when it comes to free speech. And here I will quote the ranking member, quote, "These platforms are utilized as conduits to spread vitriolic hate messages into every home and country. Efforts by media companies to counter the surge have fallen short. Social network platforms continue to be used as ready avenues to spread dangerous white nationalist speech." Or, that was from 2019, from 2020, it goes way beyond the fact that big tech misbehaves. It's the fact this kind of power exists. That kind of power cannot be allowed to exist in society. When you use that sort of language with regard to the same companies we're now hearing require free speech, I find that somewhat difficult to swallow.
Thank you, Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a sham hearing railing against a made-up boogeyman. I'm not normally up here defending big business, and as Mr. Shapiro noted, I have said repeatedly that we need to limit the massive dark money spending that big business pours into our politics and also pours into our Supreme Court. But let's talk about what's really happening here. Corporate brands care about their reputation because they sell more products if they have a good public image. And these companies think it's bad for business to run their advertising content next to child porn or ISIS videos or hate speech or an advertisement from the
We have a meme copium raid. Cheers, peeps. Thanks, meme, for the raid. For those of you that are coming in, Elon Musk sued some people that basically were trying to organize a boycott of him. As a result, the organization itself has decided to shut down, but the case is going to move forward. This is just a, this is the Senate hearing, Judicial Committee hearing. I'm probably only going to go for another 15 minutes or so, but thank you so much, Josh, for the raid. Appreciate it, buddy.
Heritage Foundation about Project 2025, which is so alarming to...
Okay, am I going to have to do an actual stream on Project 2025? What the fuck is this shit? Like, what? Why would anyone care? No, you didn't get an FU, Stingy, because I've already seen that image. Dark money refers to political spending that's meant to influence the decision of the voter. Huh. Is he bringing up the concern of Quam cat sizing his end? No, not so much. This is more just about... This literally has nothing to do with, like, Trump going into next year. It has nothing It isn't even about the freaking election. It's about 140 companies worldwide agreeing to be bound by the terms of a group and saying, yeah, sure, we'll pull all of our advertising off of X. And it was a... Project 2025 is a 900-page memorandum from the Heritage Foundation. Okay. Chase, is there any reason whatsoever why I should be even bothering to pay attention to it? Has absolutely nothing to do with what's being discussed. Okay.
most Americans are alarmed, and that's why their representatives are talking about Project 2025, a 900-page manifesto, which is the blueprint for the Trump administration, should he be so fortunate and we be so unfortunate that he be reelected. Nobody wants their advertisements running against that kind of content.
But they don't get to choose. If you purchase ad space, you don't get to dictate how and when and where. If the product is specifically, if someone comes to me and says, I want you to act on the transfer of my house, part of the transaction is, yes, they get to organize who it is with, who the bank is, whatever else. They don't get to dictate to me how I prepare the transfer documents. They don't get to dictate to me how I prepare the contract. Bloody hell. Sorry, Hendrix. Hello, how you doing? Hendrix? Sorry. Easily find it from the Heritage Foundation website. Okay.
Foreign propaganda, networked disinformation campaigns. So these brands are working together to demand greater transparency and accountability from platforms regarding where their ads are placed and what kinds of content the ads are monetizing.
Exactly.
That just sounds to me like good common business sense. Am I right about that, Mr. Patel?
Yes, sir.
And how about you, Mr. Jewell? Am I right or am I wrong?
That's correct, sir.
Thank you. But that's not really why we're here. This do-nothing Congress has nothing to run on this fall. They started out this Congress with 15 rounds of voting to elect a speaker, and then they promptly proceeded to throw the speaker out, and they wasted another 3 weeks trying to put in another speaker. MAGA Republicans have given us 2 years.
Tell you what, even if that story had been true, I would have sold the friggin' thing. Do you honestly think that I want anything to do with that woman? I have my own PS5. It is right here, and I've had it for years. Okay, if there was even an iota of truth to that, I would have flogged the thing off. Honestly, there's no point in keeping it. Jesus.
Of dysfunction.
But thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it, mate.
Yeah.
And that means the dog gets a
And
dog
they don't
treat.
have anything to show for it but a few rabbit hole investigations of the Biden corrupt crime family, allegedly. 20 million.
Wait. That's a soundbite. Did he literally just say the Biden rabbit hole investigations of the Biden corrupt crime family? Can I just
corrupt crime family, allegedly?
That's a
$20
soundbite.
million in taxpayer money spent between two committees investigating the president with the aim of impeachment, and we saw where that went. So they have nothing, absolutely nothing to show for their dysfunction. And so what they're now trying to do is gin up their base against this made-up boogeyman and give a platform to extreme voices who want to spread misinformation. The American people know better, and they want a Congress that will work on behalf of real Americans on real problems. Instead of this sham hearing, we should be working on protecting and strengthening our democracy.
Wait a second. This dipshit literally just said we should be working for and protecting real Americans. When was the last time you were down at the Texas border, mate? Just asking. Have the DOJ report that says Biden's too old and senile to understand what his prison sentence would be. Ooh.
Which is about to be undermined should Project 2025 go into effect. Professor Waller, Mr. Shapiro's testimony states that, quote, GARM acts as a cartel, end quote. You are an expert in antitrust law, are you not?
I've devoted a lot of my career to studying it.
Can you explain why that assertion is false?
I have not seen any evidence and publicly available information that suggests that GARM plays a role like a traditional cartel. It does not consist primarily of firms that compete with each other, and they are not agreeing on the price, amount, or other kinds of market division that
Okay, fine. Like I said, it may not be strictly antitrust. But let me put it this way. If I, as a law firm, connect with an accountant, and then a real estate agent, and then any number of other businesses that I'm not technically competing with, but we all get together to screw over the local fish and chip shop, that to me is still acting in concert for a collective purpose to the detriment of another business. So fine, rephrase it as intentional injurious falsehood or tortious interference with a business. That's fine. But it's not like nothing wrong is going on. Yeah, allegedly because they don't compete with each other, and I would argue that they still do compete with each other because they compete with each other to obtain the ad space on Twitter, X, because there is a finite level and amount of advertising available. There's only a finite space, especially if you get if you pay for Premium Plus, which I now understand is going completely ad free, not a sponsor. Although Elon, if you want to throw me any cash, that'd be go for it. Wish we could Bud Light, Unilever. They're too big. That's the problem. And that's probably part of the reason why they want this to just go away, is because they don't want the big companies like Unilever or the 6 advertising companies to be scrutinized to the point where, oh, maybe they should be broken up. Like,
normally does and is normally punished for it if you can prove.
So this hearing is pretty much false advertisement, wouldn't you say?
Well, I would just caution all members of the committee just not to fall in the trap that sometimes my students do, which when they see something that they don't like, they think it's either an antitrust violation or a violation of the Constitution. It's just not necessarily true.
Well, gosh, I really hope that Project 2025 does not come into play, because if it does, we'll be having a whole lot more hearings like this, sham hearings on issues that actually suppress the rights of the people and even business owners to conduct business in a business-like fashion. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Mr. Jewell, what's uncommon collaboration?
Here we go. That's what, yes, thank you.
Uncommon collaboration?
Yep. This is from the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, your working charter, priorities for uncommon collaboration. I just want to know what you guys say is uncommon collaboration.
Well, I can't speak for GARM, but I think what
you're on the board, right? You're on the steer team, your company.
My company's on the steering team. I think what they're referring to
Founding
here,
member.
what they're referring to
Are you a
here-
founding member? Group M's a founding member of GARM, right?
Yes.
So I'm asking this is your charter, your working charter. What's uncommon collaboration?
I believe what they're referring to is a cross-industry collaboration between agencies, brands, technology companies, ad tech companies.
Well,
So here's the thing. You've literally just admitted that it's collaboration across the industry. Just because you're not competing against each other does not mean that there is not collaboration across the industry. And given that this is all set up in relation to the advertising done on behalf of all of these companies, yeah, sure, maybe the 140 companies that are represented are all individual and in different industries, but they're all doing the advertising, whatever, through the 6 fucking companies that are technically supposed to be competing against each other. Damn it. That's Oregon.
that's all warm and fuzzy, but here's what Mr. Rakowitz, the guy you guys hired to run GARM, here's what he says. Uncommon collaboration is competitors working together. Competitors working together to rise above individual commercial interest. Uncommon collaboration needs to be understood as the industry coming together, putting aside competitive concerns.
Literally, almost the definition of collusion.
Mr. Waller just said we don't have a cartel here, but that sounds a lot like a cartel to me. Would you agree? Sounds a lot like limiting actions that would limit consumer choice. That sounds like unlawful restraint of trade, and all that stuff is illegal according to the Sherman Act.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Mr. Jewell?
He looks like he'd rather suckle
What's
lemon.
the question? Sorry.
What's the same question? You're trying to tell me. I asked what uncommon collaboration is, which is from your working charter, GARM's working charter. And Mr. Rakowitz defines uncommon collaboration as rising above individual commercial interests. I thought a company was focused on their commercial interests of their individual company.
Sir, GARM is used for framework and definitions to try and make order of something that quite honestly had no order to begin with.
Well, here's what GARM did. Here's what it looks like, I think, in practice. Can we put up let's put up the email from Mr. Montgomery, who works for Mr. Jewell's company. The email about Breitbart, the Daily Wire, and Fox News.
You can say that something does something in a particular way, but if in practice it operates completely differently, you're still full of shit.
There's an interesting parallel here with Breitbart. As much as we hated their ideology and blank, we couldn't really justify blocking them for misguided opinion. I don't know the Daily Wire that well, but we should watch them carefully too. If we block the Daily Wire, why wouldn't we block Fox News? That seems to me like uncommon collaboration in practice, focused on 3 conservative news outlets. You see it that way, Mr. Jewell?
Respectfully, no, sir.
Well, how do you see it then?
I see this as somebody from our brand safety team, and he's asking questions about what sort of standards of service they have and trying to figure out what is happening with that particular publisher.
Well, let's put up the next one. Let's show some more uncommon collaboration in practice.
Keep
Put up the
sucking
next
that
one.
lemon, mate.
This
Sounds
is
like
one
it's
about
worse.
Twitter. Based on your recommendations, we have stopped all paid advertisement because the platform was rather unsafe. This is their opinion due to Elon Musk's decision to firing lotteries. This is when Elon Musk bought Twitter. But it's an important platform for us to reach our audience, so we would like to consider going back. Looks like this was a coordinated, uncommon collaboration to boycott Twitter, but this company wants to go back because they make a lot of money when they're advertising on Twitter. Is that
Who's
what
got the same
this
leg
uncommon
shaking problem I've
collaboration
got?
is that GARM engages in, Mr. Jewell?
We're not party to this email, so I can't really speak to this. We actually have been big supporters of Twitter and X. Recently,
that's
2
good.
weeks ago, we met with Mr. Musk, introduced her to our advertisers. To be clear, we want more choice in this industry, more places to create trusted brand advertising.
Mr. Shapiro, it's been cited several times. I think Mr. Natter said this in an opening statement. A number of other people said that they come together, they collaborate, they collude, they come together because they don't want to be advertising on sites where there's terrorism, piracy, harmful images of children, or other crimes on those associated with those websites. Any of that activity take place on the Daily Wire website?
No, it most certainly is not.
Yeah. So that's just we're all against that stuff. What we're not for is this colluding, this collaboration to go after to limit advertising because you don't like their ideology, you don't like their politics. That's what we're focused on, and that's exactly what's going on out there. And frankly, as you said in your opening statement, anybody can see it.
Yeah, the emails that you're showing, I've yet to see an email on the other side suggesting the possibility of divestment from CNN, for example.
Yeah, and trust me, we did a lot of investigating. We'd had that, we'd have put it in our report. Didn't find a one. It was all targeted in one direction, and they say it in their charter document. And Mr. Rakowitz says uncommon collaboration is limiting the choice of, it makes absolutely no sense to me. That I will recognize the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to welcome the witnesses as well, and let's talk a little bit about brand reputation, if we may. We all know that how important brand reputation is. As Warren Buffett has said, it takes 20 years to build a brand and 5 minutes to destroy it. Let me start out with Mr. Patel, a question, sir. In 2020, Unilever paused all social media advertising
trying to work out which guy
because
was talking, though.
the environment had become very polarized and unhelpful to its brand. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Let me say consumers agree with you that, in fact, 82% of consumers also feel that it is important that the content surrounding online ads be appropriate. And, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to submit for the record an article titled Brand Safety, What Do Consumers Consider?
Okay, yeah, and I just want to bring this up because I can see Ghost going to town on it. People, given the updated demonetizing list that YouTube's put out, I just want to confirm for you, feel free to resend whatever your message was, just without the specific words, okay? Because anything that's going to get me demonetized, now, particularly leading up to November, I've said that the mods do have free reign, okay? That doesn't mean that I want to curtail your speech, I just don't want to lose the money on it, okay? So, feel free to have at resending whatever, just without things like, oh, I can't even say the words. But, yeah, it's in no way me trying to censor you, okay? I want to make that absolutely clear. Yes, there is a list, and I will put both the list and the link to this in, chat. Sorry, in the description. And you know what? Probably tomorrow, you know what we'll do? We'll go over to Rumble and I'll read every single damn word.
To be inappropriate content. So, Mr. Patel, I'm going to ask again. Unilever paused advertising on both
we'll do it tomorrow. I'll go to
conservative
Rumble and we'll
and liberal channels
read
and
every
did
single
not
word.
specifically target
Not that is in any way
conservative
trying to
platforms
avoid any
or
sort of
content creators. Is that correct? And that's for 2020.
Yes, sir. We pulled all our advertising from all assets.
So, Mr. Patel, it sounds like this is more of a pure business decision and not a messaging crusade on your part. Would you agree with that?
No, we did what was felt was best for our brands.
Business decision.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Patel,
Yes.
you've testified that Unilever, you make decisions to advertise independently. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We make our investments on what's right for our brands. And
No group, including GARM.
Hello, Brandon. Uh-oh. Oh, I thought that was a joke. I just realized you were talking about, what do you call it? Just realized you were talking about the shot at Trump. Aussie Visors 2024. Honestly, I thought you were trying to tell a joke. I thought SS meant to reference a certain country in the 1940s. And I'm like, oh, whoops. That's what you meant.
Dictates or approves where Unilever spends its advertising dollars, is that correct?
100%. Unilever makes its own decisions.
And no group directs Unilever to avoid any platform or creator, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Patel, members of GARM can come and go freely like X, formerly Twitter, have done, is that correct?
GARM is a voluntary organization.
Professor Waller, if I may, some in this committee have suggested that members of GARM have colluded to harm competition by boycotting certain platforms or speakers. Don't businesses have the fundamental right to choose how and where they spend their advertising dollars?
That is correct.
And it's clear from Mr. Patel's answers and the public documents that there is no collusion. Would you agree with that?
I can only say as a matter of, I have not read the committee's report, and based on publicly available information, I'm seeing a discussion of unilateral decisions on how to do business, which is the purview of each company, and you simply need more. You need more, even if other firms are doing similar or even identical decisions. The law is clear that you need something that shows that they're acting in a way together rather than independent. And I see you have an element of antitrust violation.
Well,
chart
what you
behind
have
you.
behind me, sir, Mr. Waller, is a chart of the 3 elements, the mandatory elements of a Sherman Act Section 1 violation. You need to prove all 3 elements. So, Mr. Waller, let me ask you.
U.S. choosing
Are you aware of
their,
any agreement among the competitors to
state.
boycott or collude?
Well, I have no personal agreement, but I'm not hearing anything today that suggests that. And in the absence of an agreement, I can just say there is no Section 1 violation.
So if there's no agreement, there can't be a Section 1 antitrust violation.
That is true.
So there's no antitrust violation.
If there's no agreement, there's no Section 1, and then there are other requirements that HR has.
Only because you missed last Saturday? Or was that your ultimate goal, to dismantle all the drinking streams? But no, actually, I had a really fun time last weekend.
2 additional requirements. You have to show an unreasonable harm to competition. And there's one, in addition, I would suggest that if the firms involved have a legitimate business justification for what they do, that is often enough to avoid violation, even if there were an agreement.
That's a lot. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I yield the remainder of my time.
Okay. There is still another 2 hours of this. I have no intention of listening to everybody asking questions of all of this. So, the woman in, oh, hang on. Took a break at some point, but I gotta get some sleep at some point. I don't know. Maybe. Sounds like the Republicans had the Democrats by the balls. I would like to think so. Democrats usually don't break out law unless they're trying to protect their asses. Yeah. I think what I'll do is, I think we've got the general gist of what was going on. I don't think that any of the individuals going to provide any testimony or evidence that sways one way or another. So what I will do is I'll jump to the end for closing statements on this, and then, maybe we can save this for, I don't know, a lazy Sunday afternoon stream or whatever. But I just, tell you what, I think that probably.
Probably for over 15 years. We use Irish Spring now. And I was trying to think to myself, when is the last time I saw a Dove soap ad? Now, I am a conservative family, and I look at a lot of different outlets, whether it's online or whether it's TV or radio or everything you can imagine. I haven't heard a Dove soap ad in at least 10 to 15 or 20 years. So if I was responsible to my shareholders and I had to go there and I had to answer to them if I'm doing the best job possible, for your words, the protection of the brand, you're using these extreme examples of situations where the brand might be associated with a freak situation versus a normal family of kids. We never see a Dove soap ad, ever. No, so let's look at a couple different things. In my family, I have a couple Democrats that are brothers, and I love them like I love everyone. My mom made a rule. in our grocery business, we love Democrats as much as Republicans because she's brought up the example of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was asked to go against Ronald Reagan. The big media said, you got to condemn Ronald Reagan for all the wrongs that he's doing. And Michael Jordan responded to, even Republicans buy tennis shoes. So Mr. Patel, even Republicans buy Dove soap. So how do we sit here over hours and hours of testimony? How do you go to these shareholders of the Dove Soap Company and explain to them that we left out half of the population of America that doesn't deserve to see an ad to tell you how delightful Dove soap could be in your life? Your response, my friend.
Firstly, sir, it's disappointing that you haven't bought soap for 15 years.
Dove soap.
Dove soap, I would like to address that at some point.
Irish Springs.
But what I would share is that, Dove as a brand has over 62% penetration in the US. So that's, agnostic of any conservative or liberal perspective. We advertise close to nearly 150 million on Dove. So it's not a lack of advertising on the Dove brand. And we make it very specific who we target, which is 18 to 49-year-old women.
I appreciate that. I will change my point of focus over to Mr. Shapiro and any response to that type of a question.
Would the gentleman yield for a second?
I will.
Thank you. Irish Spring is owned by Colgate-Palmolive. Colgate-Palmolive is a member of GARM. Thank you.
In response to that, being in the grocery aisles every day, the Irish Spring colorful box actually pops out and sells itself. And I wish there were some Dove advertisements to remind me how wonderful my life would be with Dove soap. So with that point of focus, we'll move back to Mr. Shapiro.
The soap battles were amusing. I was enjoying that, actually. As far as the generalized point that you're making, which is that half of the audience of the United States is largely being ignored by certain advertisers. That obviously is true. That doesn't mean that conservatives don't watch sports or don't watch entertainment. That is where presumably they're getting their exposure to Dove soap. But when it comes to the original question that the chairman was asking, which is whether, for example, Unilever advertises with the New York Times, or with MSNBC, or with CNN, or with The View, all of which have hosts who have said extraordinarily controversial things, the answer was yes. And when it comes to would they advertise or have they advertised on conservative news outlets, the answer typically is no. I also should mention at this point that I've been told by the advertising department of my own company that Group M's managing director actually told us explicitly.
Wait, hang on. Ugh. Well done, Kate.
The Daily Wire has an uphill battle based on our politically conservative content. So again, the idea that that philosophy and ideology never take part in this.
Would the gentleman yield? Would the gentleman yield? Mr. Rulli, the gentleman yield?
I will.
I just want to clarify that. So just a few minutes ago, Mr. Jewell said if you reached out to them, they'd be willing to talk and consider advertising. That actually happened?
I've been told by, again, the people who, we have our own advertising department that deals with advertisers, obviously, and they did tell us that they'd spoken with the Group M managing director who said that we would have a tough time breaking into their market specifically because of our political orientation.
So Mr. Jewell doesn't, what he said under oath here doesn't
I mean, they may have talked to Mr. Jewell, to be fair.
I understand that. I'm not saying that, Mr. Jewell, but that doesn't comport with what happened when Daily Wire talked to Group M.
That's what I've been told.
Interesting.
I yield back to the gentleman.
I yield my time back.
I should point out, Mr. Rulli.
Said, quote, while some may find the ad objectionable, it doesn't violate any of these stated advertising
that ain't
policies.
changing.
Without objection. If I could, real quick. Mr. Jewell, you said you'd be happy to work with the Daily Wire if they reach out to you. I don't know anything about how the advertising world works. Is that how it normally happens? Do they reach out to you and say, hey, we'd like you guys to advertise here? Or do you say, wow, this is a platform with 15 million followers, 50 million views on YouTube. That's some place we want to go as a potential to make our clients money. How does it work normally?
I was gone? Damn you, GARM! No, everything was running on my end. I have no idea. How long was I gone for? Well, to answer Mofuck's question, the dog ain't getting any thinner, and we didn't really miss much in terms of I thought Hayden was getting scrubbed. Well, I mean, it looks to me like channels, like the stream's still okay. Everything seems to be all right.
Generally, publishers come to us and say, this is the audiences that we have, this is the type of content we have, would this be
So
appropriate?
it's that way. So it's from Daily Wire to you.
Yes.
Okay. And then just to be clear, that happened.
Apparently, but neither of us knew it.
Yeah, that happened, and your people told his people, Group M people told the Daily Wire people, sorry, it ain't gonna work. You guys are too darn conservative, which is the whole point of today's hearing.
I can only go on what Mr. Shapiro said.
I can only go on that too, but he hadn't told us anything
Well, what he said was
today
an
that...
uphill battle, I think, not that it won't work.
Well, okay.
That's more or less the same thing. Come on.
Right?
Don't
But
be,
it's not an
don't be a
uphill battle to
dipshit.
get it on The View, The Washington Post, and CNN and everything else. And that is the point. That is the point. We want to thank you all for being here. And I got to read something here. That concludes today's hearing. We thank our witnesses for appearing before the committee without objection. All members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the witness, additional materials for the record without objection. The hearing is adjourned.
All right, so there we go. Oh, God. I mean, I think it goes without saying that... Hang on. Whoops. Had to boom or something, let's face it. Yeah. That? Does that the best? Eh. Blame BlackRock if you want to blame someone for it. Eh. I mean, the whole reason that we were watching that was because obviously it was off the cuff of Elon suing GARM. GARM have now decided that it'd be a good idea to dissolve, and that case will still move forward. As far as I'm concerned, I think that the case should still be... I mean, having watched that, I think there's a distinct possibility that certain things in that complaint against GARM, the WFA and the member companies may need to be retooled. But we'll have to watch and see exactly how they respond to it. The fact that it's actually the WFA that's being sued as opposed to GARM as an advisory body or whatever else, probably should have checked that at the start if I'm perfectly honest. But anyway, what I'm going to do is I will close out with... Where'd it go? Nope, that's GARM. That's Elon Musk stuff. Hero House. That. Oh yeah. Let's go to this week's 657 News with Mark Humphreys.
U.S. presidential hopeful Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has admitted he committed a prank 10 years ago by dumping a dead bear cub in New York's Central Park. But before you judge him, remember the fabled words of his uncle John F. Kennedy: ask not what your country can do for you, ask where can I put this dead bear? In recent years, Kennedy has gained notoriety for his stance on vaccines, and nothing says taking public health seriously like leaving rotting animals in public places. It's the weirdest RFK Jr. story to drop this month. Last month's title goes to this one.
Robert F. Kennedy denies taking a bite of a dead dog.
They have a picture of me supposedly eating a dog. And of course, it's not a dog.
Just to explain his speaking voice there, he doesn't have a frog in his throat, though he may have some dog there. But of course, the title for this year's weirdest RFK story goes
to be fair, this guy can be hit and miss. I mean, there was a reason that he was on the ABC on a comedy show, but... Really? This is what you're going with this week? I don't know. Also, great success. Yes, I actually started the show with a tribute to him. And we wonder how he got the brainworm. Well...
Who?
RFK Jr. says doctors found a dead worm in his brain.
Could explain a few things, though in fairness, it's believed a bear left it there as a prank. And with a dead bear, a dead dog, and a dead worm, is it any surprise he's coming dead last? 2 novelty coin theft news, and some novelty coins have been stolen. 63,000 Bluey-themed $1 coins were stolen from a Sydney warehouse. Police...
What? No wonder I couldn't get a hold of any of them. Seriously, I tried to. They sold out within minutes. It didn't get any Grady Judd this week. I'll see what the last morning briefing is.
Are trying to locate the missing coins, but since the coins feature a dog on them, one place worth looking might be RFK Jr.'s stomach. Online, the $1 coins were being sold for $10, though that's not because they're collector's items, that was just inflation that day. The coins are particularly rare, as they're the only $1 coins in Australia that depict someone who people actually like. Speaking of someone people don't like, former Qantas CEO Alan Joyce has had his final pay packet cut by $9.2 million.
Yes, great success. Our $1 and $2 coins are, I mean, I think it's a mix of, zinc and whatever else, but or zinc, copper, but a certain percentage of them is gold. Because originally it was supposed to be that the amount of gold that was in them was their relative value, because we had it compared to the gold standard. So our $1 and $2 coins are in fact gold color. I went to the wrong warehouse.
Joyce shouldn't be that surprised. Thinking you were entitled to something only to be told it won't show up is a key feature of Qantas's business model. Joyce had been expected to step down in November last year before leaving Qantas ahead of schedule in September, the only known time the words Qantas and ahead of schedule have ever appeared in the same sentence. And finally, to someone who definitely should appear on an Australian coin, Jack Karlson, the succulent Chinese meal guy, died this week aged 82. Karlson is survived by fellow meme lords, the Chuk Chuk Boom Girl.
The fatter wog said to the skinnier wog, "Oi, bro, you slept with my cousin, eh? Boom!"
Party boy Corey Worthington.
I'll say sorry, but I'm not taking off my glasses.
And of course, Rabid Ray.
They came bounding over.
Careful, Ray. Keep that up and RFK Jr. might eat you. That's the 6:57 p.m. news. I'm Mark Humphrey.
Okay, now it actually makes sense how they were linking all that together. Qantas is worse than Air Canada, yes. Alright, and at request, we'll watch a morning briefing with Grady Judd. And then I'm out of here.
Hello everyone, it's time for morning briefing, and our cup today is Heaven's Saints Motorcycle Ministry. That's right, Jesus is Lord, praying always.
What do you think I do?
For the saints. And they say they pray for law enforcement as they sip their coffee. Well, sip some coffee with us today, Heavenly Saints. And let's talk about a couple of people who ain't saints. Okay? So here's the deal. Jessica Bland is 24, and she's got an arrest history, but it's very minor: failure to appear, petty theft. And then she's hanging out with Sean Hackney. He's 45, much too old for her, and he's got a long criminal history. He is a reprobate. He is a criminal. So what do? They go steal a 15-foot Boston whaler in a trailer, okay? Our detectives, who are the very best, have tracked them all around the county: East Lakeland, North Lakeland, South Lakeland, near Mulberry, Plant City, and we arrest them and get them into custody. You can't get away from the long arm of the law, no matter how young you are. They're locked up. She's now got a felony charge, and he's got another felony charge. Have a good day.
Okay, so there you go. Oh, all right, peeps. I'm going to head to bed. Vices is due to be live with the Karen Reid hearing in just over 2 hours. So, unfortunately, I don't think I've got anywhere live to send you. So, I'm going to have to send you off into the ether. But, as always, please remember that you're not a piece of shit. You have value, and thank you to everyone that's already hit the subscribe button. Double check whether or not you've hit that like. And, as always, stay healthy, wealthy, and wise, and I will catch you all on the flip side. Cheers, peeps.
This shit, I'm out. Fuck this shit, I'm out. No thanks. Don't mind me. I'ma just grab my stuff and leave. Excuse me, please. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Nope. Fuck this shit, I'm out. Alright then. I don't know what the fuck just happened, but I don't really care. I'ma get the fuck up out of here. Fuck this shit, I'm out.